Chapter 278. Even closing her eyes couldn't stop it. One had to know that Mia had already done a perfect job when she accepted the challenge. She had considered all aspects. The compound eye on her forehead was fully focused on Han Dong's forehead. Once there was any sign of opening her eyes, Mia would immediately cut off her visual nerve. But the first round of practice ended. Mia wasn't unwilling but walked to the side of the field in a daze. Mia's mind was full of that strange eye just now. It was different from the little magic eye in her impression. There seemed to be more patterns on the pupil. It was these patterns that made Mia lose consciousness in an instant. Why was I affected even though I didn't open my eyes? In close combat, even a second of sluggishness is extremely fatal. Has Nicholas been studying eyes for the past few months? Not only that, his body's strength and mobility have improved. When she thought of this, Mia, who was resting by the wall with her spider legs, suddenly showed a sick smile. Wow, it's really great. Nicholas, I miss him so much. While fantasizing, the 4 spider legs kept rubbing in the air. It was also when Mia's illness was acting up. Demps slowly came to the center of the field. He stared at Han Dong's G-arm, that slowly returned to its original state, and the little magic eye that was closed again. Fortunately, I was the second to fight with you, or I would have lost instantly. If I'm not wrong, it involves the problem of distance, right? Demps pointed out the key point. It was originally a practice, and Han Dong didn't mean to deliberately hide his ability. Demps' brother's insight is really good. It is indeed a problem of distance. As long as we are completely close, the little magic eye can ignore all obstacles and play its role. Well, the wind blew under his feet. Demps stepped on a cyclone and immediately opened up a distance of 10 meters from Han Dong. Since he was a mage, opening up a distance from the target was the most basic preparation before the battle. Student Nicholas, do you still need to rest? There's no need for that. If we can finish the sparring as soon as possible, I'll be able to rest early and prepare for tomorrow's journey of fate. Han Dong actually stretched in front of Demps. Although Demps wouldn't take advantage of such a gap to launch a sneak attack, he was still a little unhappy in his heart. Since Witch Coronia isn't here, I'll show you some of my true abilities. Normal magic shouldn't be able to fool your eyes. Demps took out a series of small bottles from the small satchel he carried with him. 5 liters of pure water, 4 kilograms of carbon, 0. 5 liters of ammonia, 0. 2 kilograms of lime, 100 grams of phosphorus, 45 grams of salt, 20 grams of saltpeter, 10 grams of sulfur, 1. 5 grams of fluorine, 0. 6 grams of iron, 0. 4 grams of silicon, and a few trace elements. In the meantime, a unique array was quickly drawn by Demps. Is this alchemy? Han Dong stared at the scene and felt a sense of danger. On the sidelines, Mia immediately cast a curious gaze over. She opened a large number of compound eyes to zoom in, as Demps reached out and landed in the center of the array. Using an alchemy array to achieve the balance of activation energy and the directional reconstruction of materials, following a flash of light and shadow. The materials were transformed into a part of Demps' body through the alchemy array. Human body refinement on Demps' left shoulder blade, there was an extra arm. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, it was simple to think that Demps created an extra arm through such a human body refinement to assist in casting spells. But in fact, it wasn't that simple. Little magic, I could also clearly see the internal structure. This arm is an independent life? Han Dong saw through the epidermis and dermis of this arm. What he saw was not only the muscles, blood vessels, and bone structure. Instead, it was a special arm with a sound small organ structure that performed all the functions of the human body. At the same time, Demps' 6th finger also appeared at the end of this arm. When this posture was formed, Demps' whole body exuded a great sense of danger. What was the point of doing this? If the students in the library saw this scene, they would naturally understand. Mages themselves had certain limitations. For example, if a mage was casting ice magic, then the ice energy would flow through the whole body. If a mage wanted to cast a fireball at the same time as an ice arrow, this would cause the two mutually repulsive energies to wander in the body, causing great damage to the body. Therefore, magic apprentices often chose to specialize in a certain direction. Even if they practiced many kinds of magic, without a special physique, they could only rely on some special destiny equipment to achieve multicasting. Otherwise, they could only cast one kind of magic and then change to another. There must be a time gap in between. Dempus, on the other hand, thought of a method called simultaneous casting. Through the human body refinement in alchemy, he temporarily created an arm that imitated a human body. It was connected to the body but separated from the body. The energy of the seed flowed into the body and the arm. This way, there would be no repulsion and multicasting could be achieved at the same time. Moreover, the sixth finger could also adjust and strengthen the whole casting process. This was little magician Erdemps Martin's unknown fighting posture, which was rarely used in front of others. The sparring began. Ice veins stuck to the skin and extended to the body's arms. The left hand held an ice crystal longbow. While the right hand pulled the bow, the fingertips formed an arrow with a cold aura. The cold aura made the wet ground under Demp's feet to form a layer of ice crystals. At the same time, streaks of flames flowed on the third arm. An extremely hot fireball condensed in the palm area. The ice element could freeze the enemy's armor. The fire element could burn the enemy's body. When the two were combined and used at the same time on the enemy, it could achieve a disintegration effect, greatly destroying the armor layer and the body. The effect was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. After the giant fireball was refined and compressed by the sixth finger, it suddenly popped out. Dragging a trail of flames, it went straight to Han Dong. Then, the ice arrow was shot at the same time. The two completely different magic in the process of flight, there was a combined effect. The fire element and the ice element surrounded each other. Once hit, even though a crusader, knight with high defense would be seriously injured. However, Han Dong did not intend to dodge. A pattern mark faintly appeared in the eyes of the little demon. Staring at the two completely different magic flying toward him, Han Dong could clearly analyze the magic sequence. Demps, this guy, the magic he built is almost perfect. However, any magic needs a temporary core to maintain. The plague doctor's dagger was in his hand. Han Dong stepped back slightly and locked on to a point. He swung his right arm hard and threw the dagger. The flying dagger collided with the magic head-on. Boom! Flames and ice crystals scattered in the air. The slightly blackened dagger covered with a layer of ice crystals flipped a few times in the air and inserted into the ground. Magic break succeeded. Chapter 279. See, through little magic I could counter both physical and magical attack. It could see through the path of a physical attack and analyze its weak point. It could see through the internal layout and flow of magic and analyze the location of the magic core. Take Fireball as an example. Once the core of the fireball could be accurately destroyed while it was flying, the fire element itself would no longer be restrained and unable to maintain the fireball form, thus achieving magic break. Han Dong asked Demps to come over to spar to verify this point of little magic eye. On the ground, a short sword carried by a fungus community was sent back to Han Dong's hand. The aura changed? Han Dong frowned and quickly looked at Demps. Magic break, for a mage, was a kind of humiliation. Demps was no longer smiling and began to take this match seriously. The ice element converged. In its place, white lines quickly passed through the subcutaneous veins and spread all over Demps's body. On top of that, 2 cloud imprints were constructed on his ankles. Whoosh, a pale white cloak appeared. Destiny equipment, Sam's wind cloak, excellent. Its quality was equivalent to the coral seal on Han Dong's finger. It could provide the wearer with a 15% increase in wind attribute, and at the same time, it could form a wind barrier to reduce the damage caused by long-range attacks. The wind attribute was fully activated. Demps moved sideways. His speed was even faster than Abel Ryan's in his Mad Wolf form. He even left behind some afterimages as he moved through subtle wind manipulation technique. He also wore the spellcaster ring good, on both hands. The ring was made with magic stones as the main material, which could optimize the storage and release of magic, making it more convenient for both hands to cast spells. Two incomparably sharp wind blades had already formed in the center of his palms. With Demps's super-fast movement, the wind blades attacked Han Dong from different directions at a speed of 2 per second. Infinite see-through in the face of the wind blade attack, Han Dong only moved within a 1-meter radius, using the short sword to delicately pierce the magic core in the wind blade. Once it was broken, the wind blade would immediately turn into ordinary air and would not cause any damage. Slowly, as his body adapted, Han Dong passed the task of breaking the wind blades to his right arm. Through the giant eye on his right arm, he was able to perform an adaptive defense. In this fixed mode, the right arm's adaptation was more accurate than Han Dong's subjective control. Little magic eye plus G-arm equals catching a blade barehanded. Han Dong's eyes were fixed on Demps the entire time, observing the third hand hidden behind him. Demps is a very shrewd guy. He didn't hesitate to use such a high-intensity magic consumption to attract attention, completely hiding the real decisive move. The magic book with an iron cover was held in his third hand. Furthermore, there was an extra mouth on the palm of the living hand, and it was currently reading a certain paragraph of text from the magic book. Advanced magic chanting. Some kind of unique magic was slowly being formed as the sixth finger moved. No wonder when I was breaking through the wind blades, I felt a chill run down my spine. Once the chanting is completed, some kind of extremely difficult to break the core and unavoidable high-level magic will be thrown at me. Things will be really troublesome. I still have to go on the journey of destiny tomorrow. Little brother Demps is really merciless. For a moment, the corpse feather coat inside Han Dong's lining was activated, and the feathers stood up slightly at a 30-degree angle. Combined with the griffin boots and Han Dong's crow attribute, it gave Han Dong a high degree of mobility. He no longer broke the wind blades one by one. For a moment, Han Dong was like a black crow. Seeing and dodging every wind blade, he rushed at Demps as fast as he could, even if he couldn't completely avoid the wind blade. When the wind blade came into contact with the corpse feather coat, the black feathers on the surface floated, and the wind blade's path was actually changed, passing through the body without causing any damage. As long as Han Dong could interrupt the chanting and stop the spell, the exchange would be over. The speed of both of them was not slow. However, Dempus had used a circular path to execute the wind blade. Han Dong only needed to move along the tangential line, and he would be able to collide with Demps head-on. If one looked from a high altitude, it would look like a black crow flapping its wings, opening its sharp mouth, raising its claws, and closing in on a beautiful white bird. Just as the two were about to collide, the chanting was suddenly completed. However, it was a very unwise choice to cast a destructive spell at close range. The caster would also be involved in it, and even be injured more. As long as he could suppress Demps before the spell was thrown, it would be fine. But the situation was a bit different. Demps showed a smile. "Vice Captain, I guessed in advance that you could completely dodge the wind blade, and with your observation, you would definitely find out that I was chanting in the dark, and would inevitably choose to take the initiative to get close to me and interrupt my action. In addition, the range of your eyes should not be more than 30 centimeters. As long as it's not completely close, it doesn't matter." Chirp, chirp, chirp. A polluting aura spread out from Demp's body surface. The sixth finger had evolved into a highly polluting aquamarine tentacle, and even had a suction cup structure. The chanting activated the array in the book. Chirp chirp. The tentacle went deep into the array, as if it was dragging something inside. Whoosh. Seawater splashed. A deep-sea spear inlaid with shells and corals rolled out from the tentacle. Close combat mage? Han Dong was shocked. The deep-sea long spear, which came out of nowhere, gave Han Dong an instinctive sense of danger. From the beginning, Demps had planned to do so. Set up a multi-layered maze to lure Han Dong closer. He, who was good at controlling long spears, could fix the distance of the battle to a distance that the little magic eye could not directly affect. As soon as the spear came out, Han Dong, who only relied on the plague dagger, was no match for him. The tip of the spear stirred. Han Dong seemed to have fallen into a deep-sea area, surrounded by a deep-sea octopus, and could not see through at all. Nicholas! Mia on the sidelines also panicked. If this went on, Han Dong might be seriously injured. Her 4 spider legs quickly crawled forward to help. But the distance was so far that she could not catch up at all. However, what happened next stunned Mia. Facing the mysterious spear that was about to pierce his chest. Clang clang clang. Scorching iron chains actually drilled out from Han Dong's arms. With the protection of the iron chains, Han Dong used his greatest strength to grab the tip of the spear. He forcibly stabilized the spear's piercing and made it stop 1 centimeter away from his chest. Dempus furrowed his brows. He decisively withdrew the spear. After the spear was withdrawn, it turned into dark blue seawater and flowed back into the magic book. The 3rd arm that was refined from the human body also disappeared. Demps Martin returned to his normal appearance of a magic apprentice, slightly bowed in front of Han Dong and said politely, "Vice Captain is better, I admit defeat?" Han Dong took a deep breath. The scorching iron chains wrapped around the surface of his right arm slowly retracted into the enlarged pores. Yes, this was Toga's hell chain. Han Dong, as the main body, temporarily borrowed it. Using it for a short period of time also caused Han Dong's right arm to be severely burned. Otherwise, that spear just now would have really killed him. Brother Demps, you still have some abilities that you haven't used, right? Demps covered his face and smiled, and said in an extremely magnetic voice, "Isn't Vice Captain the same? But Vice Captain has an important mission tomorrow. Let's stop here. If you don't mind, let's go for dinner together?" After saying that, Demps also habitually put his arm on Han Dong's shoulder. Chapter 280. Holy City, 3rd floor, Royal Lion Hotel. Sizzle. The carriage with the artist Mayakid's carvings stopped in front of the hotel. "Mr. Demps Martin, please come with me." After a while, Demps, Han Dong, and Mia came to a small room decorated with crystals. A dazzling array of top-quality dishes were served at the same time. Wow! Mia had never seen such a scene, and a trace of venomous saliva flowed along the corner of her mouth. "You're welcome. You're going to the Destiny Realm tomorrow. Today I used a lot of energy to practice. This meal would be a reward for the Vice Captain's hard work. Practicing with the Vice Captain made me find a lot of shortcomings, and it also made me think about some details." Han Dong was also stunned by the sight, smell, and taste of the high-class dishes. "Brother Demps, this hotel seems to be only accessible to high-ranking nobles, royalty, or high-ranking members of the Holy City, right? And the cost of living here should be very high, right? How did you do it?" Demps hooked his finger in the air. "Didn't I say before that this is my side job? I can make a little money through massaging, and I can also practice my finger technique. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, isn't it good?" Han Dong looked helpless. He was currently spending a lot of manpower and material resources to rebuild the laboratory outside the city. After the production line came out, the final annual income may not be as much as Demps's casual massage. At the thought of this, Han Dong felt a tightness in his chest. However, Han Dong was shocked by what happened after that. He felt that the soup not only filled his stomach, but also restored the physical strength and energy consumed in the practice. Demps, with an elegant posture, cut the fish on the plate and said simply, "Being surrounded by negative things such as pollution, fear, fatigue, and so on all day long, this kind of enjoyment and relaxation is very necessary. Some high-ranking members of the Knights often come to this hotel to spend money. It's similar to a top-level stress release method. Moreover, this hotel listed its guests on the top floor, especially when it came to the privacy of its guests. Many important people choose to discuss their private affairs here. Yes, let's keep the matter between us a secret. As for our secrets, we'll share them when we've gained a firm foothold in the Holy City. All right. Also, I booked a room while I was at it. According to Miss Mia, the environment and facilities of the Royal Lion Hotel were naturally much better than the student dormitories. Your information has been registered with the hotel. Through the clockwork bracelet, you can enjoy most of the hotel's services. The staff will also take you to the corresponding rooms. Enjoy it." As soon as he heard this, Mia's prejudice against Demps was completely gone. "All right, then, I can only wish Vice Captain the best that he can get through the Destiny Realm. I won't disturb you for the rest of the time." As Demps left, however, just as the two of them walked into the hotel lobby, "Nicholas, Vice Captain." This familiar voice made Mia so angry that she almost popped out her spider legs in public. The newcomers were Blacksmith, Wunli, and Abel. Why are you here?" "Brother Demps just sent me a message saying that he's treating us to all kinds of top-notch services in the Royal Lion Hotel tonight. It just so happens that our team can meet up early and head to the clock tower together tomorrow." Me too." Wunli nodded. "That's good. Demps is very thoughtful." "How is that good?" "It's not good at all." Mia was so angry that she wanted to chop someone up. Han Dong was checking the information at the front desk. He found that Demps had only booked a luxurious suite for the four of them. This meant that the four of them could discuss and rest in the same room while enjoying the various services of the Royal Lion Hotel. Demps is a pretty good guy, but it's a pity that he's not willing to participate in this Destiny event. "Nicholas, let's go and take a bath. My grandfather once brought me here. The hot spring here comes with a special massage that can completely relax our bodies and allow us to face the Destiny event in our best condition." Abel knew that it was not easy to come to such a high-class place. He hugged Han Dong with his slightly hairy arms and headed to the men's only hot spring area. "Get lost." Mia was so angry that she was about to cry when she saw this scene. "Sister Mia, why don't we go take a bath too, all right? Let's not think about this scumbag anymore. I only want you, Wunli." Mia hugged Wunli intimately. There were several muscular waiters in the men's only hot spring area. Abel and Han Dong lay on the shore of the hot spring as the waiters took turns to serve them. This kind of massage was just too comfortable. After about 4 hours of enjoying most of the high-end services in the hotel, the large round bed was taken by 2 girls who came back early. The wool carpet was also very comfortable. Han Dong did not even have the strength to speak. He collapsed on the furry carpet with Abel and quickly fell asleep. The night passed by in a daze. When Han Dong woke up, he found that there was no one in the room. He looked at the time and saw that it was already past 10 o'clock. Han Dong was still holding a small tuft of white hair in his hand. It seemed that he accidentally pulled it off while sleeping with Abel last night. At this moment, *click, the door opened. Mia walked back into the room with Wunli sticking close to her. At the same time, Wunli was holding a set of exquisite food provided by the hotel. "Vice Captain, we saw that you were sleeping very soundly, so we didn't wake you up. Captain Abel has to go back to get some basic consumables. We'll meet at the entrance of the clock tower at 11:30 sharp. Hurry up and eat your breakfast before the food gets cold." "Okay." When Han Dong got up, he felt his body was incomparably light and in excellent condition. The high-quality food coupled with the various top-class services gave Han Dong an unprecedented peak condition. If I can perfectly clear the game, I'll have to properly thank Demps when I return. Let's go. Let's go. After eating breakfast, Han Dong waved at the two girls. Unexpectedly, a few strands of white fur fell to the ground. Mia happened to see this. I'm so angry. Chapter 281. In front of the familiar bell tower. There were more than 20 selected teams of apprentice knights waiting here. There were still many new teams who looked terrible. Due to the mental pressure, they even had insomnia all night. Han Dong came to the bell tower for the third time. Even if today's Destiny event would be increased in difficulty through the card and might even completely distort the original Destiny event. However, Han Dong was still calm and did not feel any pressure. The night spent in the Royal Lion Hotel allowed Han Dong to reach his best state. He was ready to deal with any danger. Time was up. Accompanied by the steam, copper pipes descended one by one. The next second, the clock-bearer should walk out from the inside. But in Han Dong's eyes, a red balloon floated out from the inside. Then, Pennywise the clown, who was wearing a fluffy clown costume with white paint on his face, jumped out from the bottom of the bell tower. He danced happily and came to Han Dong with the red balloon. He used his big nose to sniff Han Dong's body. A dangerous aura. You seem to be going on an extraordinary adventure again. Don't die on the way. I'm still waiting for you to come back and visit in Draytown. The clown reached out and pointed at his empty right sleeve. But I have a feeling that something will happen to you this time. Didn't you cut off my arm? When you're in danger, you can take it out and use it. Maybe it can save your life. I don't want you to die in another world. Pop! The balloon exploded. The balloon in the clown's hand exploded. Abel snapped his fingers in front of Han Dong. Nicholas, are you okay? I'm fine. When Han Dong came back to his senses, only his team was left outside the bell tower. The clown's arm? Han Dong had been storing his arm in the sterile laboratory and completely bound it with a testing device. Because his load limit had reached its limit, he could not use it for the time being. I'll think about it when I'm really in danger. When the last team entered the bell tower, just like before, they went through a series of tests and waiting processes. Listening to the sound of the thousands of gears inside the clock tower, the team finally arrived before the door of destiny. He stared at the deep door that led to an unknown place. This was Blacksmith Wenlien's first time here, so she was a little scared. Mia immediately pressed her face against Wenli's and used kisses and caresses to make Wenli relax. It seemed that after last night's enjoyment, their relationship had improved. Let's go. Abel held the card of fate scepter in his hand. Holding hands, the four of them entered together. Detected that a party member is carrying a card of fate scepter. Do you wish to use it? Abel conveyed his affirmation through his consciousness. Buzz, there was a ringing sound in his ears. Once again, he landed in a familiar area, video shop. Strange. Isn't it random? Why are you here? The last few times Han Dong was able to come here, he had used up the cards of fate with the choice ability. He arrived at the video store to make a selection. But this time, the cards used did not have the choice ability, so it was simply more difficult. Logically speaking, everyone should be directly transported to a completely distorted fate world. The CDs and books on these shelves can't be seen. Even if it's random, we still have to make a choice? Unlike the previous few times, all the products in the video store were covered in a thick black fog, which could not be dispersed or seen clearly. The system notification sounded. Please take any product on the shelf that corresponds to the fate background and place the cards of fate in your hands into it to combine. The estimated time to combine is 30 minutes. Hint: do not try to check the product's information in any way or you will be erased. Since they could not read any information, it was the same whoever made the choice. Captain Abel, since the card is yours, you can make the decision. Okay. Abel, who was born and raised in the sacred city, seemed to be repulsed by the CDs that he had never seen before. He went straight to the book section. According to Mr. Black and White's request, he tried his best to choose difficult events, but he could not check the product's information here. Abel's brain was still relatively simple, and he directly linked thickness to difficulty. He chose a relatively thick book and placed it in front of the cashier. Next, he followed the instructions and combined the cards of fate with the book. When Abel gently placed the golden card into the book, the golden light immediately dispersed the black fog on the surface of the book. Product upgrade. During this process, please do not arbitrarily move the book that is being combined, and do not touch other products in the video store. In a situation where he could not do anything, he could only stare at the cover of the book that had been dispersed by the fog. 2 words that only Han Dong could read appeared. Ghost story. The twisted words were extremely eerie, and the mouth that formed the second word was like a bottomless human mouth. There was a black eye in the mouth, as if it was staring at the reader. The background of the book cover was a strange crossroad. If one looked closely, they would find many interesting details. For example, in a taxi waiting at a traffic light, the driver did not have both hands. On the sidewalk, a woman pushing a baby carriage left a trail of blood behind her. On the display cabinet of a newspaper stand at the end of the street, there seemed to be a row of dried human heads. On the drying pole of a certain house's balcony, there were many wrinkled leather bags hanging. Japanese ghost story? This is a bit troublesome. Han Dong quickly identified the source of the book. This was not a book from his home country, but from a small island country that was close to his home country. Although Japan was small, there were a lot of strange stories circulating in the country. Many of the top directors of horror movies were born in Japan. Moreover, the literary works that they created were often bad endings, and the existences that were involved in them were almost impossible to resist. Han Dong rarely watched such idealistic movies or books when he was alive. He only heard online about how scary Japanese horror movies were, and how they could even scare people to death. In Han Dong's opinion, even if it could really scare people to death, it was just some people with serious heart disease who wanted to die. Now that he thought about it, there was a certain possibility that he would die in such a literary work, and he felt that it was somewhat ironic. I estimate, even if the card of fate is not fused, the world of fate corresponding to this book is also very difficult. I hope the card will not distort the original world too much, causing us to have no clue. Miss Wan Lee and the team should also be very afraid of this type of world background. Let Mia take good care of him. Waiting quietly. As the cards gradually fused, the crossroad on the cover of the book became alive. Fusion complete, generating scene. All of a sudden, the book opened and pulled Han Dong and his group into it. Ghost story, it officially began. Chapter 282. The combination has been completed. The original Fate event, Ghost Stories, has been changed to Ghost Stories Paradise. The background has been greatly reconstructed. The event has been rearranged. The initial identity of the participants has been changed. Restrictions have been added. Introduction. In the current world, through the use of advanced neurotechnology, humans have captured the existence of spirits for the first time. From there, they have verified the existence of scary urban legends around the world, or ghost stories for short. The Joint Administrative Bureau has released the Ghost Stories Collection Plan. The Special Ops Bureau in Japan has used a certain method to gather all the ghost stories in the country to one location. A place to investigate and research supernatural knowledge, Ghost Stories Paradise, has been built. Even the world's cruelest death row inmate will pick up the fear that they have long abandoned in the paradise. Type: Evil Spirit. Event difficulty, Seed Stage, Standard 5 stars. Main mission, Twisted Escape from the Ghost Stories Paradise. There is no time limit. Based on the Ghost Stories points obtained, There will be 4 different rewards: Frowny Face Noob Prisoner, Ghost Stories points less than 51 Destiny point, 1 Ghost Stories Souvenir. Normal Prisoner, Ghost Stories points less than 102 Destiny points, 1 Ghost Stories Souvenir. Professional Prisoner, Ghost Stories points less than 202 Destiny points, Card of Fate Seed Stage, 1 Ghost Stories Souvenir. Death Row Prisoner, Ghost Stories points greater than 203 Destiny points, Card of Fate Seed Stage, 1 Ghost Stories Souvenir. Note 1. There is a Ghost Stories shop in the Paradise. You can use Ghost Stories points to purchase items that are helpful. Note: items purchased from the Ghost Stories shop cannot be brought out of the Destiny space. 2 Ghost Stories points that are not spent will be converted into Destiny points according to the ratio of 10:1. 3 Current Destiny event difficulty has reached the highest level in the seed stage. Please proceed with caution. Wow! 5 stars. The moment the consciousness connected with the body. The blacksmith, Wan Li, was so scared that her face paled. She could not help but scream. Then she realized that she had lost her composure and quickly pretended that nothing had happened. Wan Li's scream attracted the unfriendly and even perverted gazes from the people who were in the same car. They seemed to crave the beauty Wan Li. He had officially entered the Destiny realm. However, the team did not appear directly at the so-called Ghost Stories Paradise. Currently, he was sitting in a bright and clean carriage of a bullet train. The train was speeding along the ocean railway, and the blue sea was outside the window. For the humans living in the holy city, the ocean was mysterious and invisible. They had only read beautiful descriptions of the ocean in books. Such a beautiful scene immediately attracted the attention of Abel and Mia, who were sitting by the window. According to the incident description, the destination of this train was obviously the theme park used to collect ghost stories in Japan. Let's talk about the situation of the 4 of them. He was dressed in a prisoner's uniform with black and white stripes, and his hands and feet were shackled by a superalloy reinforced electronic chain. Han Dong stared at his attire and muttered, "That's right? Conduct the event as a prisoner?" Sure enough, it was a world enhanced and distorted by cards. Even the beginning was so troublesome. The reward of completing the 5-star difficulty is that if you can perfectly clear the dungeon, you can obtain 3 Destiny points in one go. How interesting! Thinking back to the incident with the clown, the 4-star difficulty almost burned Han Dong's brain cells dry. However, the nature of the 2 Destiny events was different. In The Clown Returns to Life, there was an intelligent final boss, the clown, Pennywise. But this time, Ghost Stories Paradise did not seem to have a final boss. In essence, it was a Destiny event with multiple plots, multiple monsters, and multiple methods. The goal was to obtain Ghost Stories points and escape from the theme park. There was no fixed goal. In comparison, Han Dong preferred this kind of Destiny event. After all, facing the clown head-on was too much of a headache. After hearing the incident description, other than Han Dong, who was calm, the expressions of the other 3 changed. The expressions of the 3 members of the party changed to a certain extent. They had never experienced such a difficult fate event before, and they did not know how difficult it would be. The danger level was self-evident. The slightest mistake, the slightest bit of delay, or even the slightest bit of panic could lead to death. These prisoners are not simple. Han Dong turned his head to look at the situation inside the train carriage. There were a total of 8 teams in each carriage, 4 people in a team, but it was unclear how many carriages there were. Their attire was the same as Han Dong's. They were prisoners from the lowest level of the prison, and they were definitely not normal prisoners who had committed minor crimes. From their eyes that had no hope in life, or their eyes that bordered on madness, it was clear that they were all prisoners on death row. Furthermore, every prisoner seemed to exude a powerful aura. With such a worldview, these prisoners seemed to have inhuman abilities. At this moment, a foldable LCD screen was lowered from the top of every seat in the carriage. A woman dressed like a radio host appeared on the screen. "Prisoners on death row, hello. In half an hour, our train will arrive at Paradise Station. Now, I will explain the relevant requirements and rules of this journey on death row. The following content concerns your fundamental interests, so please listen carefully. Humans exist in this world for a reason, and you are the same. Because you have violated the law, you have been deprived of your life rights, but we have not completely given up on you. And you still have the chance to continue contributing to humanity and the world. That is to enter paradise and try your best to bring back useful supernatural information and information for humanity. Those who meet the requirements will be able to return to society, and your files will be cleared. We will give you a chance to start anew. The premise is that you have to meet the requirements. Please lower your head to look at your wrist. The number 5 represents your initial ghost story point. It is the most important thing for you to survive in paradise. Inside paradise, there is also a ghost story supermarket that we have spent a lot of manpower and resources to create. You can spend points in the supermarket to buy a variety of consumables, props to help you survive, or clues that can help you earn more points. 1 point can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that no one cares about. 5 points can be exchanged for clues to scary ghost stories. 10 points can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that aunties are spreading. 30 points can be exchanged for clues to ghost stories that everyone knows. When your ghost story points reach 100 points, you can exchange for passes at the supermarket and leave through the nearest exit. At the same time, you will start a new life. Chapter 283. Han Dong whispered as softly as possible to calm everyone down. Don't be nervous. Listen to the staff's instructions before entering the paradise. As for how to start the event exploration, we'll talk about it when we officially enter the paradise area. Okay. Mia. What? Mia was still a little angry. She was furious when she thought about how their two-person world was ruined yesterday, and how Han Dong grabbed a bunch of white hairs. It's Miss Wenli's first time carrying out a fate event. Because of her, the hidden difficulty of the event will be slightly lower. I need you to take care of her, Mia. Even if you don't tell me, I'll take care of Sister Wenli. Only Sister Wenli was with me last night. I don't want to talk to a scumbag like you who doesn't keep his words. It was different from usual. Han Dong didn't have time to joke around since they were in the middle of a 5-star event. Han Dong looked serious. Mia, I'm not joking with you. Miss Wenli's life will be in danger if she's not careful in a 5-star event. Not only do I need you to be responsible for Wenli's safety, but I also need you to teach her all kinds of details. No mistakes are allowed. I know. You're so fierce. Mia actually knew the seriousness of the matter. In the past few months of being friends with blacksmith Wenli, Mia also knew how timid the blacksmith was. She was very afraid of unknown evil spirits and monsters. The uncanny valley effect was quite serious. This time, it happened to be an evil spirit event, so Mia's workload was not small. However, Wenli herself was an indispensable tool. No indispensable combat power. They had to ensure that Wenli would not make any mistakes and be of the greatest use at the critical moment. This was the key to a perfect clearance. As for Captain Abel, Han Dong didn't need to remind him at all. Abel's experience and ability could definitely adapt to this event. Coincidentally, Han Dong didn't see Abel's true strength during the last training. It was just right that he could use this event to understand the strongest freshman who had more potential than Captain Kamon. After a while, the blue sea outside the window was replaced by a sealed tunnel. The train continued to travel at high speed and circled around the outer management area of the paradise. Every time they arrived at a platform, a carriage of prisoners would disembark. Using this method, a large number of death row inmates would enter paradise from different directions to reduce the possibility of conflict. When the train stopped at platform 8, it was Han Dong's turn. All death row inmates, please take note that when you leave the carriage, a person in charge will bring you into the Paradise buffer zone. After passing all the checks, you will be released from the restrictions and officially enter Paradise. In the meantime, please comply with the request of the person in charge. Along with the broadcast announcement, a person in charge wearing exoskeleton armor led Han Dong and the other three out of the car. After a series of basic checks, they passed through a secret passage in the tunnel and came to a room with a number. You have 10 minutes in the buffer room to remove the restraints on your body and make preparations. Once the time is up, you will enter Paradise from entrance 078. After the person in charge passed the iris identification, the buffer room opened. The treatment is pretty good. He thought it would be a very simple room. He didn't expect the interior to have everything. Exquisite dishes were placed on the table, accompanied by a large amount of energy-replenishing chocolate and vitamin drink. On the shelves on both sides were a large number of basic weapons and clothing. Other than firearms, there were swords, spears, sticks, and everything else. Through the laser device on the wall, the electronic handcuffs on the hands and feet could be separated. It was important to note that this was only separate and not release. The electronic handcuffs were still attached to Han Dong and the others. It was obvious that the person in charge of the Paradise could use this device to locate the prisoners in real time. Other than that, there was a warning written on the scanner: do not destroy the electronic handcuffs in any way, or you will be deprived of your last chance to seek reincarnation in the Paradise. Han Dong thought about the various restrictions and said in a low voice, I believe that in the original ghost stories, we would have appeared in a normal Japanese and investigated the local ghost stories as normal visitors. After being strengthened and distorted by the O card of fate, even the basic background framework has been changed. This is quite troublesome. 5 stars. This is my first time carrying out a fate event, and it's at full difficulty. Wenli kept rubbing her fingers nervously. Mia immediately went forward to comfort her. Aya, it's fine. Don't we have a captain and vice-captain? Moreover, we are survivors who escaped from the old king. A seed stage fate event won't be difficult for us. We only have 10 minutes. Sister Wenli, let's quickly find some clothes to change into. Okay. Mia turned her head and said unhappily, we girls need to change. Don't peek. Mia immediately weaved a dense spider web in the area with the clothes to block the view. Soon, the two girls' conversation came from the spider web. Wow. Sister Wenli, you have a great body. Sister Mia, don't. A series of strange conversations made the atmosphere a little bad. Han Dong sat at the dining table and ate with a normal expression. At the same time, he put away the energy-replenishing chocolate bars. As for the various cold weapons on the other side, they were not necessary for Han Dong and the others. Han Dong stared at the cold weapons and looked at Abel. Captain, if we provide cold weapons here, I believe we can use ghost story points to exchange for some high-damage firearms at the so-called shop. Moreover, I've observed the prisoners who came in with us, and they all seem to have inhuman power. The rules didn't mention that we're not allowed to kill each other. I even suspect that there's a possibility of stealing points. Therefore, other than being careful of ghost stories, we have to be careful of these prisoners. Okay. At this moment, the two girls finished changing. Wenli, like before, found a fitting black tank top. At the same time, she used bandages to minimize her more prominent features to prevent it from affecting her movement. Mia, on the other hand, changed into a black leather jacket that was completely close-fitting, showing off her tall and slender figure. Mia, change if you don't want us to be surrounded by a group of hungry men. Idiot. I'm choosing my own clothes. Why do you have to care? Not bothering to hide anything at all, Mia pulled down the zipper on her back and changed her clothes in front of everyone. Wenli, who was at the side, immediately stepped forward and blocked her with her body. In the end, she changed into civilian clothing, a t-shirt and a pair of black shorts. However, he felt that Mia's long legs would still attract trouble. However, Han Dong did not say anything. Let's go. Let's start exploring Ghost Stories Paradise. Chapter 284. According to the workers at Paradise, each team had 5 basic ghost story points, which could be used for shopping. Without knowing anything at the beginning, Han Dong and the others naturally had to find the shop to understand the specific situation of the shop and then exchange for related ghost story clues. As for how to obtain more points, we'll have to go to the shop to ask. They officially entered Paradise. Han Dong was completely stunned by what he saw inside. He thought that when all the ghost stories were collected in one city, the city would turn into an absolute ghost town. Normal people would not be able to live in such an environment. A desolate and bleak mature environment was what Han Dong initially expected. But in reality, outside the buffer room was a dark alley. Once the door was closed, it merged with the cement wall of the alley and was completely hidden. This is paradise? They walked out of the dark alley. Abundant sunlight shone on the street. When the pain gradually adapted, what greeted their eyes was the bustling pedestrian street of Che Shui Malone. Such a scene was difficult to accept for Abel, who lived in the holy city. It even felt weird and uncomfortable, but for Han Dong it was too familiar. It even made his eyes redden. Huge electronic billboards with huge faces. Various brand clothing stores with different styles. A large number of people with their heads lowered came and went. They were either watching videos, chatting with friends, or dealing with work matters. At the same time, there were also hawkers pushing octopus ball carts on the street. There was a sushi restaurant with a canopy. There was also a ramen restaurant where one could smell the fragrance of dolphin bones from 10 meters away. Pedestrian Street. Han Dong had been to the Institute of Molecular Cell Research at Tokyo University as a visiting scholar when he was alive. He had lived there for about a year. Han Dong could still do the most basic communication. Moreover, this place was different from the countryside corresponding to the first movie, Bewitched. Since it was in a relatively advanced city area, basic communication could be done in English. Wow! As a blacksmith, Wenli was able to quickly accept such a new thing. She was immediately attracted by the various streamlined designs. Wenli, don't run around. Wait for me here. It's totally different from the paradise I imagined. Since there are people living here, we have to keep a low profile. It didn't take long for Han Dong to steal some autumn windbreakers from the warehouse of a clothing store. The relatively loose cuffs completely covered the electronic handcuffs on his wrists. At the same time, Han Dong also stole some Japanese yen bills from the warehouse that he would definitely need. He led his team into the crowd and arrived at a kiosk at the end of the street. Han Dong bought 4 sets of paradise maps from the boss in fluent Japanese. Wenli, who was following the team, asked with confusion, "Lieutenant, there are many shops in this city. How can we confirm that we're looking for a ghost story shop? I only know one thing. This kind of store definitely won't appear in public." Han Dong pointed at their current location on the map. "Let's use the crossroads as a temporary rendezvous point. We'll split up and search. Come back here in an hour. Try your best to search in a dark and secluded area. Also, don't cause any trouble." Han Dong's last sentence was naturally for Mia. With Mia's personality, if she encountered something that made her unhappy, she might just attack. Mia reached out and hugged Wenli. "Don't worry, this is a 5-star mission. They won't do anything rash. Sister Wenli, let's go. Be careful. Since we're already here, there might be danger at any time. I know you're so naggy." They split up. Every team member had a different way of acting independently. Abel hid in the streets and alleys immediately. He embedded his sharp claws into the walls and quickly climbed up to the roof. Through jumping and moving on the roofs, coupled with his excellent vision and the unique sense of smell of a beast, he searched for unique areas. Mia, on the other hand, would release some small spiders every time they passed through a dark alley. On the other hand, Mia herself would try to obtain information from some hooligans and ask them if they knew about some unknown strange shop. From Han Dong's perspective, the background of the current world, the level of technology is probably 100 to 200 years ahead of the world I was living in. They can actually create such a bionic city to collect ghost stories. Then humans, coming and going on the streets, don't seem to be real, but they're almost the same as real people. Let's find the shop first. Han Dong tried to disguise himself and blend into the crowd, but he found that he couldn't blend in no matter how hard he tried. The reason was not himself, but there was something wrong with the humans in the city itself. Han Dong specially bought a large hooded sweater with a hood to cover his little magic eyes so that he could observe in the dark. After half an hour of searching, Han Dong didn't find anything. There was no shop and there was no ghost story. All of a sudden, walla lala, the originally clear sky suddenly started to rain heavily, and the whole city became gloomy. Han Dong quickly came to the eaves of a supermarket to take shelter from the rain. Is it possible that the shop is combined with a normal supermarket? Han Dong, who walked around the supermarket, bought an umbrella and deliberately showed the prisoner's handcuffs in front of the cashier. But he didn't get any response. His guess was wrong. Dear customer, our store is equipped with public umbrellas. You can use your phone to scan them. No need, it's raining heavily. There should be no more umbrellas, right? There's still one left. Following the reminder of the cashier, Han Dong looked at the public umbrella stand at the entrance of the supermarket. There was only one red umbrella left on it. The surface of the umbrella exuded a strange aura. At this moment, an anxious office worker with a briefcase received a call from his boss and immediately scanned and took the red umbrella. Soon, it disappeared in the heavy rain. What a pity, this umbrella is 6,600 yen in total. When the salesman turned his head, he found that the money had been placed on the cashier's counter. The young customer who just bought the umbrella had left. In the heavy rain, Han Dong followed the office worker who had just taken the last red umbrella. It was not just a matter of aura. When the man opened the umbrella, a human head appeared inside the umbrella. The head was tightly attached to the man's shoulder. A long gray tongue was sticking out from the unusually bright red lips, licking the man's cheek from time to time. The man only felt the cold rain splashing on his cheek and didn't know anything. Chapter 285. What's going on? Leaking rain? The quality of this public umbrella is really bad. But, as long as the documents are not wet, it's fine. Today's meeting can't go wrong, I must be there on time. This office worker hurried to the company on the other side of the street. He often felt raindrops dripping on his cheek. It was unusually cold. Hiss! It's so cold! Another cold liquid touch came from the side of his cheek. When the man habitually touched his right cheek, he found that the rainwater was a bit sticky. Moreover, there were 2 strands of hair stuck on his finger. At the same time, there was an inexplicable feeling of being peeped at close range, which gave him goosebumps all over his body. But in order to not let the documents in his hand get wet, he still held the umbrella and changed to running to the company. At the same time, the cold sticky liquid appeared more frequently on the side of his face. Even when he glanced at the side of his face, he seemed to feel that there was a head leaning on his shoulder. Could it be? The urban legend is true, the company was just across the street. The man who was completely flustered did not notice the problem of the traffic light at all. Boom! A car that was speeding in the rainstorm hit the man's body head-on. The handwritten documents in the briefcase were scattered everywhere. The umbrella in the man's hand was also thrown out. A serious car accident occurred at the intersection. The deceased Ikegami Yutani was an ordinary employee of Halida Company. Witnesses said that before the accident, the deceased tried to run through the red light with a panicked face. Due to the low visibility in the rainstorm, he collided head-on with the speeding car. There was also one more thing mentioned. The deceased was holding a red umbrella in his hand. But the red umbrella was not found at the scene of the accident. Perhaps it was thrown too far away due to the high-speed impact. A young man in a hat walked into the alley 100 meters away from the scene of the accident. In his hand was the red umbrella that was lost at the scene of the accident. When the accident happened, Han Dong, who was following this person, was naturally at the scene. He steadily caught the red umbrella that was thrown out, avoided the sight, and quietly walked away from the scene. Just as Han Dong stepped into the alley, the familiar system prompt came from the Destiny realm. However, the prompt this time was different from the past. Whether it was the voice or the prompt, it was different. Perhaps it had something to do with the difficulty of 5 stars. In Han Dong's mind, it was the voice of an eerie old woman. It was as if she was telling him a horror story. Ghost stories. Red Umbrella strange ghost stories. It was rumored that a series of vicious serial murders had taken place in the area of Hashima City in Gifu Prefecture. The murderer was used to acting on rainy days, and he specifically targeted young women with red umbrellas. Due to the vile nature of the crime and the high number of crimes, which seriously affected the local law and order, when the local police couldn't solve the case, a senior agent from Nagoya took over. Finally, through some high-tech image processing technology and investigation methods, the identity and location of the suspect were determined. The police were mobilized and broke into the house. The room was filled with the stench of corpses. The suspect, Masajima Toshio, had already been dead for more than 10 days. The narrow room was filled with all kinds of candid photos and red umbrellas held by the victims when they were alive. The suspect seemed to have a weakness for the color red. At the same time, the heads of the previous victims were stored in a large freezer in the basement. After the forensic analysis of the suspect's body, it was found that he was overly frightened before he died. He used the lines connected to the photos to strangle himself to death. This was the main cause of death. But strangely, the body cavity was filled with rainwater and hair. At the same time, the report of the evidence department came out. Since the victims' heads were kept in cold storage, they were soon matched with the previous victims. But one head was missing. Moreover, the missing head happened to be the victim of the last murder. After careful calculation of the time of death, it was found that the time of death of the suspect happened to be the same day as the victim's death. In other words, after the suspect killed the victim, he died in his own home that night. Since the suspect was brought to justice, the case was closed, but when it came to this, the local police didn't want to talk about it. A few days after the end of the incident, occasionally, a red umbrella would appear on the public umbrella rack in Hashima City. Some people who couldn't wait for the rain to stop and didn't want to take a taxi often died in accidents after using this red umbrella. After the autopsy, it was found that there was a large amount of rainwater and sticky black hair left in their bodies. The story of the strange and bizarre events was finished. The old woman's voice in Han Dong's mind continued to talk about the related mission requirements and arrangements. Ghost story level, B triggering method, non-clue indirect trigger. Requirements: carry the umbrella with you for 24 hours. The umbrella can only be separated from the individual by clothing. If the umbrella is separated for any reason during this period, the timer will be reset. When the time is up, you can obtain ghost story information. Submit it to the shop to obtain the corresponding ghost story points. Ha 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 ha. Eerie laughter. At this point, the introduction of the side event ended. This is completely different from the explanation of the side event in the Destiny space. It's like an old man telling the story of a ghost story. It involves the issue of the level. The current red umbrella corresponds to a B level, so it should be a slightly above average ghost story. I didn't expect to encounter it at the start of the game. However, through this incident, one thing was proven. Even without the clues in the shop, I can still trigger the ghost story. Since the requirement is to carry it with me, then so be it. As for the problem of the ghost story, I'll think about it later. I believe the history of this umbrella is very complicated. Perhaps a serial killer was one of the owners of this umbrella. Han Dong carried the umbrella on his back with a thin string. The requirement to carry it with him for 24 hours was obviously for Han Dong to survive this period of time. Just now, the poor office worker met with an unexpected disaster in 5 minutes. I should try to return to the junction and meet up with them first. Han Dong carried the umbrella and prepared to walk out of the alley. The feeling of cold rain touching his cheeks came. Han Dong turned his head to look. A head was growing on his shoulder. It was completely different from Chun-Li. Chun-Li was still human. Currently, the thing that had taken root on Han Dong's shoulder through the tendrils was a real spirit. Pale makeup. 2 red dots touched the upper and lower lips. A dark gray tongue that kept dripping rain poked out of the mouth. Chapter 286. From Abel's perspective. The sudden heavy rain helped Abel to hide and jump quickly from roof to roof. Suddenly, Abel's running speed suddenly slowed down and stopped at the top of an old residential building. He sniffed his nose. An unusual smell was caught by Abel. If I encounter any ghost story, I have to retreat immediately. It's too risky to deal with it alone. But Abel's idea was different from Han Dong's. His purpose was to find the shop, and he didn't want to come into contact with the ghost story at the beginning. In the almost abandoned residential building, there were only a few old people who had half their bodies in the ground. Searching for the smell, Abel came to a wooden door with a metal door. The delicate metal door with lace formed a sharp contrast with the old wooden door that was already cracked. The door was printed with 4 twisted words, Ghost Story Shop. In terms of words, Han Dong had already told Abel in advance how to write shop in Japanese. Found it, I have to go back and meet up with them. Abel immediately crawled out of the window in the corridor. While he was crawling, he unexpectedly saw 4 strong men with ferocious eyes walking downstairs. They seemed to be looking for a shop as well. Death row prisoners? Let's ignore them for now. His claws dug into the wall. Abel quickly crawled away. However, among the group of death row prisoners downstairs, there was a completely blind man. His hand was behind his ear, and he seemed to hear some sound and immediately pointed to the top floor. When his teammates looked, they only saw a white shadow flash by. From Han Dong's perspective, he, who was in direct contact with the ghost story, was trying to reduce the danger. It was like a plant rooted to the ground. This woman's head with exaggerated white powder also took root on Han Dong's shoulder through a kind of flesh. However, the root was limited to the coat and couldn't penetrate the bone feather coat that exuded a polluted smell. Such a human head. Not to mention the fact that her makeup was extremely terrifying. Just the fact that it directly grew on one person's shoulder, even the other members of the team would inevitably fall into a state of panic for a period of time, and most of them would choose to remove the umbrella. Not to mention, the skull itself was emitting a deadly sense of danger. However, Han Dong was not in a hurry to throw away the umbrella, nor did he panic because of the head. Instead, he stared at the woman calmly. After all, in essence, Han Dong was also a head. Han Dong tried to pronounce as accurately as possible and spoke in a more authentic Japanese. Hello. However, the other party did not respond. Drip, drip, drip. His tongue, dripping with rainwater, slowly licked Han Dong's cheek. The moment they were about to touch, zing! A streak of light flashed past. A kitchen knife appeared out of nowhere and accurately slashed down. Dark gray tongue smack. It fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of rainwater. Not long after, another tongue grew out of the woman's mouth. Unlike the previous time, this time, the speed of the tongue was extremely fast, and it suddenly licked Han Dong's cheek. Whoosh! The ending remained the same. The kitchen knife slashed down decisively. The tongue fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of rainwater. As early as when he was tracking and observing the poor office worker, Han Dong had been thinking about all possible countermeasures. He licked the victim's face with his tongue. Every time he licked, a strange kind of rainwater would stain the victim's face and seep into the skin through his pores. This was also why the victims always felt a chill on their cheeks when they opened the red umbrella. It was also why a large amount of rainwater was found in the victims' bodies after they died. The rainwater that entered the victim's body would affect the victim's thinking to a certain extent, leading to accidental death. Therefore, Han Dong targeted the tongue. As soon as he picked up the red umbrella, he secretly asked Chun-Li to be prepared. If the other party dared to lick Han Dong, the kitchen knife would be presented to him. Han Dong continued to speak politely, "I don't mean any hostility. May I ask if we can talk normally?" However, the gloomy tongue spat out again. However, this time, it did not intend to lick Han Dong. Instead, it made the tongue spin back and forth in the air. It was quite magical. It seemed that she had not spoken for a long time and had forgotten the basic way of using her tongue. After a while, a vague language came out from the woman's mouth. "Everyone who picked up the umbrella must die." Han Dong nodded helplessly. "Well, that's a very cliché horror movie line. Can you say something else? After all, we are the same kind." Han Dong had confirmed with the little magic eye that there were no other people or surveillance cameras in the alley. In front of the woman's head, he separated his head from his body and moved it on his shoulder to show respect. He knew about the existence of the friendliness setting. He had a brief experience of working together with the clown in The Clown Recovers. Han Dong tried to take a gamble. At the beginning of this incident, he tried to establish a relationship with the corresponding spirit of the ghost story. It was necessary to try. If he succeeded, Han Dong would obtain an unexpected intelligence resource. "You are strange." The woman showed a surprised expression. Han Dong tried to ease the relationship between the two. "Since we are the same kind of people, there is no need to hurt each other. How about this? If you have anything you want to do, you can tell me anytime. I want you to die." Han Dong had heard that the corresponding spirit behind the scenes in Japanese horror movies often held a grudge against the world and killed people indiscriminately. So that was the case. "I can die, but I have a request. Can you let me live for 24 hours? When the time is up, you can do whatever you want with me." Han Dong was actually making a bet when he said this. He was betting that this simple-minded spirit, who only knew how to harm people, did not know about the 24-hour limit and would not think of this problem. After speaking many times, the woman's head found the feeling of speaking and her words were much clearer. "Take off the strange feather clothes. I promise you. Otherwise, I will kill you now." "Oh, you seem to be very afraid of this feather clothes in my body." The materials of the corpse feather clothes were all from outside the city. This was why equipment from outside the city was a double-edged sword. Pollution could affect everything. Han Dong quickly removed the feather clothes and placed it inside his backpack. Crunch, crunch. Without the protection of the feather clothes, the tendrils that were originally rooted to the surface of the clothes were forced to penetrate further. A cold feeling of rain came from his shoulder. The woman's head was completely attached to Han Dong's shoulder. The woman's head revealed a cruel smile. "The countdown starts now. Hurry up and enjoy the rest of your time." "Okay." On the surface, Han Dong had to play along and pretend to be nervous. The corresponding spirit of the ghost story doesn't seem to be very intelligent. This is good. Han Dong revealed a smile that he could not hide. Carrying the red umbrella and with an extra head on his shoulder, he returned to the junction to meet up with his teammate. Of course, normal people would not be able to see this head. Of course, if possible, try to trace the origin of this umbrella within the next 24 hours. The ghost story that was rated B by the system was not easy to deal with. Whether the main body was the human head or the umbrella, it was still too early to tell. "I'll try to use it. If it doesn't work, I'll think of a way to deal with it. Chapter 287. At the intersection, in front of the kiosk. Abel was the first to return after receiving the information about the store. Immediately after, Mia also came from the opposite side of the street with only Mia's little face was puffed up, as if she had been wronged. "Are you okay, Mia, classmate?" Abel asked. "We didn't find anything, and we were even verbally insulted by some inferior people. Nicholas didn't allow me to cause trouble, otherwise I would have eaten those hooligans alive." While looking for the store, a group of lustful hooligans pestered the two of them. Not to mention that the two of them were extremely rare exotic beauties, just Mia's long legs were enough to attract attention. Although the group of hooligans who tried to sow discord and even tried to reach out their hands were beaten up by Wonli on the spot. But Mia was still angry. According to her personality, this kind of scum must be executed. Wonli had been comforting her from the side. "Sister Mia, calm down. The people here seem to be equipped with a sophisticated mechanical device called a cell phone. The hooligan who was beaten up by me just now tried to use the cell phone to send a message to his companions. I feel that these things are quite useful. In case the magic circle in the clockwork device doesn't work, we can still use these things to establish contact." In the cloth bag in Wonli's hand, there was a pile of cell phones found from the hooligans. Captain Abel was also unsure. "Okay, let's wait for Nicholas to come back. He seems to know a little. Also, I've already found the store. Mia, classmate, you don't have to worry about these small things. The people in this paradise don't seem like real people. Killing indiscriminately may cause trouble. I'm just very angry, and I want to find a place to vent. It's all because you took Nicholas away last night." In a fit of anger, Mia finally spoke out her inner thoughts. Abel didn't respond, and could only laugh foolishly. Mia pouted, squatted on the fire hydrant by the road, and supported her chin with both hands. "Why isn't Nicholas back yet? He's not punctual at all." Just as Mia was complaining, the spider hair on her body suddenly stood up. "Danger alert!" Hiss, hiss, hiss. Several thin threads were spat out from Mia's mouth as she stared straight ahead. "Nicholas? What's going on?" Mia deliberately rubbed her eyes, thinking that she had seen wrongly. Because a large number of spider compound eyes can accept different wavelengths of light. Therefore, Mia could clearly see that Han Dong, who was walking out from the crowd, was carrying a strange red umbrella. On her shoulder, there was a pale and horrifying geisha head. The umbrella and the head both emitted a dangerous and fatal aura. If this kind of head was on Mia's body, she would definitely do everything in her power to get rid of it. Mia could not understand how Han Dong was able to coexist with such a terrifying entity. Could it be that Nicholas is being controlled? That's impossible. If he can be controlled by thoughts, I'm no match for him either. Meanwhile, Abel, who was leaning on the side of the newspaper stand, was on full alert. Owl's protection. A green light flashed in Abel's eyes. He also saw the horrifying head on Han Dong's shoulder and was also unable to understand. Only Wonli, who did not have the ability to see, could not see anything. When she saw Han Dong return, Wonli immediately went forward to greet him. Drip, drip, drip. A sticky tongue slowly grew out of the head's mouth and tried to lick Wonli. "Wonli, stay 2 meters away from me." "Ah, okay." Wonli looked depressed, thinking that she had done something wrong. Who knew that Han Dong was just deliberately observing? Sure enough, when the length of the tongue reached 1.8 meters, it automatically regarded the target as too far and retracted it back into the mouth. "Did you guys find the shop?" "We found it. It's in an old residential building. However, it seems that another group of prisoners also found it." "Prisoners? Okay, let's hurry over. As for the umbrella behind me, we'll talk about it as we go." "Okay." With Abel leading the way, the team quickly rushed to the shop. Because of Han Dong's words, Wonli deliberately kept a distance of 2 meters. "Sister Mia, did I do something wrong?" See for yourself. There's something dirty on the vice captain. Don't get close. Something dirty? Wonli quickly realized what her master had said. There were some terrifying things that could not be seen by the naked eye in the destiny space. She put on the goggles. The pale and scary Gogi head happened to be staring at Wonli. Saliva kept dripping from the corner of her mouth like rain. It seemed that she wanted to eat Wonli. Ah, people! Heads! Wonli was immediately scared and hid behind Mia. At the same time, Han Dong also explained the origin of the head on his shoulder. When he talked about how ghost stories could be activated without clues, he used English. The head could not understand. Is it too dangerous? Every time Abel saw the head that was completely rooted on Han Dong's shoulder, the white hair on his body would slightly flutter. Risk and benefit coexist. This thing seems to be very afraid of chaotic equipment. In this regard, I'm still very confident, as long as I maintain this state for 24 hours. Although it was clear that Han Dong was different. But such a bold approach, Abel was really impressed. By the way, Abel, you just said that when you found the shop, the death row team also came to the door. Did they find you? In theory, they shouldn't be found, unless they have amazing perception. I have a plan. The building where the shop was located corresponded to an old street. Compared to the pedestrian street from before, this place was obviously a lot quieter. Moreover, most of the people walking on this street were old people. Han Dong, who carried a red umbrella, walked alone on this street, extra conspicuous. As for Abel, Wonli, and Mia, the three of them were arranged to carry out a secret operation on the roof. First, they had to determine the nature of the death row prisoners. In the end, they were just a group of ordinary people, or extraordinary individuals that could threaten Han Dong and others. According to Abel, the shop was located on the 5th floor. As he walked up the old and dirty stairs, he walked up. When Han Dong walked to the 4th floor, the corridor in front of him was completely blocked by a burly man with short blonde hair. The polo shirt on his body looked like it could burst at any time. The black-tipped leather shoes on his feet were a full size 50. Such a physique was obviously a bit exaggerated. I saw you on the train. I remember that there were 2 beautiful foreign girls in your teammates. Where are they? When talking about Wonli and Mia, the prisoner was very excited. What about your teammates? Han Dong asked back. Boss, let me test your ability. You're really brave, daring to go to the shop alone. I'll break your hands and feet first and bring you to the boss. I hope to lure the 2 beautiful girls out through you. My name is Ivanov. I'm from Russia's Black Dolphin prison. I still like a little boy like you. Boom. One foot stepped out. The size 50 huge leather shoes directly broke the reinforced concrete stairs and pounced on Han Dong with open arms. Chapter 288. G-Virus Enhancement. Little Magic Eye 30% Effect. Dynamic Vision Enhancement. Han Dong, who was standing at the entrance of the corridor, took a step back. His back was against the wall, and he happened to avoid the death row prisoner's bear hug. But Han Dong, who had clearly avoided the attack, had a drop of cold sweat slide down his cheek. This doesn't feel right. What's wrong with this person? Han Dong put his hands on the wall behind him. He didn't have the intention to take the initiative to attack. Instead, he prepared to dodge again. The bear hug missed. Under normal circumstances, it should be difficult to stop immediately because of the forward momentum and the huge body. However, the situation was a bit wrong. Ivanov had a smile on his face. The moment the bear hug missed, he clenched his right hand into a fist. Through a kind of body technique that had been honed for a long time. The inertia of the forward momentum was transferred to the arm through the connection of the foot muscles and the waist muscles. There was no delay at all. Cannon fist. The air flow spread out on both sides of his thick arm. Boom. A huge hole was smashed in the reinforced concrete wall. The steel bar hidden inside the wall was actually broken by this punch. So flexible? The golden-haired Russian prisoner, Ivanov, saw that his chain of attacks still didn't hit. He looked at Han Dong, who had already hidden on the next floor, and showed a rather interesting smile. On the other hand, Han Dong sighed. His face didn't look good. Sweat kept dripping down from his temples. Han Dong was the main character of the battle just now. No one could directly experience what Han Dong felt. Han Dong had almost never experienced this kind of feeling. All along, Han Dong used the monsters in the Destiny realm to hone his fighting skills, or the polluted life outside the city. Of course, he also exchanged pointers with little brother Demps and Mia, but the two of them were not fighters. On the other hand, the battle in the corridor just now. On the level of strength, there was no doubt that Ivanov's strength was very terrifying, but his strength was definitely not comparable to the great Lord of Stuart. But the battle just now made Han Dong feel that he could be killed at any time. It wasn't just a matter of strength. There were other factors that made Han Dong rather uncomfortable. Even though Han Dong had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, he did not want to use too many of his trump cards against a death row prisoner in the early stages of the Fate event. His main goal was to obtain information. Han Dong wanted to know whether these death row inmates were there to indirectly show the power of the ghost stories, or they themselves had the power to solve the ghost stories. Now it seemed that it was indeed the latter. The cards of fate increased the difficulty of the original event, and gave the death row inmates such strength. In that split second, the forward thrust, the retreat, and the punch were all done in one go. It was similar to some kind of fighting technique, and it was quite mature. This guy was someone who had crawled out from the bottom of the prison. His moves were all against people. He's different from all the opponents I've faced so far. These fellows live to kill. Once I'm caught, I'll definitely die if I don't use extreme measures. That was right. Person to person. These we death row convicts that were designed by the system were a group of top-notch killers who had the ability to deal with people. Once they were caught, they would instantly be killed by various against-people moves. This should be one of Han Dong's blind spots. After all, the knights in the sacred city mainly needed to deal with the life outside the city. Even though I have the G-virus to support my body, strengthen my right arm, and little magic eye to see the enemy's attack pattern, but in terms of fighting, I'm a complete newbie. Plus, the space in the corridor is small, there's no extra space to dodge. Let's get out of here first. Han Dong activated the griffin boots and tried to go down the stairs as fast as he could. Who knew? Boom. The corridor above his head was crushed by Ivanov's foot. As the cement continued to fall, his huge body that could fill up the corridor suddenly fell. Little one, where do you think you're going? Uncle still wants to do something interesting with you. Can't escape. If that's the case, Han Dong took a step back, 6 steps away from Ivanov, and extended his right arm. His arm had already merged with the plague doctor's short knife. From the meaty mouth in the palm of his hand, strong plague energy shot out and attacked the opponent directly. If an ordinary person was shrouded in the impact of this plague, their body would only be left with a pool of fungus and skeletons in a short time. But something that didn't make sense happened. Ivanov turned his body sideways. He used his muscular back to resist the impact of the plague. When his coat came into contact with the plague, it was immediately eroded and destroyed. But the plague couldn't cause any deep damage to Ivanov's body. It could only cause some light superficial wounds. He forcefully ignored the plague. Going against the impact of the energy, he grabbed Han Dong's right hand that shot out the plague. Finally, I've caught you, Ivanov said with a joyful expression. He immediately used a fighting technique. Even though Han Dong's G-arm strength was not weak at all, but his skillful strength instantly broke all of his fingers, broke his wrist, and caused his elbow to be completely dislocated. He thought the battle was over. But the situation that followed was a bit strange, as if time had stopped. The two hands that were holding each other didn't separate for a long time. Logically speaking, Ivanov should continue to destroy Han Dong's other limbs. After a while, dark gray veins followed along Ivanov's arm and quickly reached his head area. Pollution invasion, their palms were facing each other. Even if he used a tentacle attack at zero distance, it wouldn't be seen, but Han Dong didn't feel very comfortable in his heart, as he was forced to use his killer move at the beginning of the battle. This fate event was a bit too rare. Pollution invasion, extremely serious crazy hallucinations eroded Ivanov's brain, a pale yellow liquid kept flowing out from his nostrils and ears, and a pattern with spots appeared in various areas of his body. But Ivanov's other hand could still clench into a fist while trembling, and his instinct drove him to continue to attack. His will to fight is too strong. It's too difficult. Remove the fusion. Han Dong held the plague dagger in his left hand, ready to end the battle with one sword. A voice came from the side of his face. Let me do it." The geisha's head on his shoulder had already spat out a long gray tongue made of rainwater from its mouth. The tongue drilled into Ivanov's mouth. His body was constantly filled with a strange kind of rainwater. As the rainwater poured in, a white thread of essence was constantly drawn into the tongue. Essence absorption, intracranial pollution. Ivanov's whole body was limp on the ground. Even if he could barely rely on his strong body to survive, he would be in a vegetative state, and his consciousness would be imprisoned in the border of madness forever. The geisha's head was extremely excited. "Wow, what is this smell? Quick, give me 2 more similar humans. I can consider sparing your life." Han Dong immediately responded, "I'll try to get 3. At the same time, tell me something, okay?" Chapter 289. Old Building, Shop. A man who was permanently blind in both eyes spent 3 ghost stories points to exchange for a katana from the shop. Not long after he received the katana from the boss. His ears seemed to have heard something. Ivanov lost? In a one-on-one battle, even if Ivanov, who is proficient in sambo, is weaker than his opponent, he shouldn't have lost so quickly and completely lost his mobility. We seem to have encountered a tough opponent since the beginning. On the surface, only one person has come to the old building, but in reality, there are 3 people hiding in the dark. The leader of this group of death row prisoners had an almost insane sense of hearing. He seemed to be able to hear everything. Bring out your tricks. Take advantage of the fact that the young man downstairs hasn't recovered yet and quickly deal with him. It doesn't matter if he's dead or alive. Just weaken the enemy's combat ability. As for the 3 people hiding in the dark, I'll keep an eye on them. Okay. Han Dong stared at his opponent, who was now in a vegetative state. He quickly took out an exquisite syringe with pure gold patterns and extracted the cell essence. Death row prisoner Ivanov. Han Dong planned to find some free time to study this guy's cell structure through the laboratory equipment. The series of abilities that Ivanov had just displayed, not to mention his fighting skills, his physical abilities were completely beyond that of a normal person's. It felt like he was in the world of the fighting anime Blade Fangs and fighting with various fighting monsters. This kind of fighting monster, if Han Dong did not use any special skills, it would be extremely difficult to deal with. Using his hidden vision, Han Dong sensed that another death row prisoner had arrived. They're here. 1. No, they're hiding their presence. There are 2. Just as Han Dong's attention was attracted by the sound of footsteps upstairs, boom. The door of the apartment on the side was kicked open. The thick anti-theft door slammed heavily into Han Dong's body. Then, a hand that was longer than a normal person's suddenly reached out from behind the anti-theft door and grabbed Han Dong's neck, lifting him into the air. Strange. Ivanov was defeated by someone like you? Looks like you have some special tricks up your sleeve, right? The person holding Han Dong was also a death row inmate from the Russian prison. The difference between Ivanov and Ivanov was that This person's body wasn't that strong, but his limbs were surprisingly long. His rough face gave people the feeling of an ape-man. At the same time, a Russian man, who was obviously smaller than Ivanov, walked down the stairs. He was holding 2 claws in his hands, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Apushi, do it." Boss said not to leave him alive. "This kid is a little strange." "Got it." The long-limbed death row prisoner, Apuxi, took out an axe from his waist and chopped down at Han Dong's head. At the critical moment, a white figure flashed past. 1 claw, kick, ding. Sparks flew everywhere. The axe that was about to fall on Han Dong's head collided with the claw from the side. A surge of inner strength flowed along the handle of the axe, forcing it to fly out of his hand. Apuxi, the long-limbed death row inmate, was shocked and immediately raised his arms to block in front of him. But he blocked the side kick head-on, but the force caused him to take 3 steps back. A very obvious outline of a wolf's foot was branded on the surface of his arm, and some blood dripped to the ground. Didn't Boss say that he was going to block the 3 people in the dark? Why did he let one of them hear? Apuxi stared at the white-haired young man who suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't dare to be negligent and immediately got into a fighting stance. That's right. The one who arrived at the critical moment was Abel Ryan. Although he was held back by the eyeless death row inmate upstairs for a while, he still arrived on time to protect Han Dong. Abel. These guys are proficient in all kinds of face-to-face technique. They're different from the creatures and monsters we've encountered outside the city. Be careful. It's okay. I'm good at this too. Abel's white hair had grown to the back of his neck, and the white gas covering his body faintly showed 2 virtual images of a white wolf and a giant bear. When it came to face-to-face, Abel wasn't bad at all. Abel received one-on-one training every day, and what he experienced the most was actual combat. The members of the Behemoth Knights didn't like to talk about theories. They preferred to use combat to teach directly. During the first few months of Abel's enrollment, he studied almost every day. His face would swell up and his body would be broken in many places. Sometimes, he could only rest in the nearby stable and use his unique 100-beast physique to quickly heal his body. When he sparred with the teachers, it was limited to not killing Abel. They would never show mercy. Breaking bones and piercing bodies were normal situations. Although Abel couldn't speak of his suffering, he still persevered and trained his combat skills. He was proficient in face-to-face combat technique. Haha, you have such skills at such a young age. You should be trained by some assassin organization. Unfortunately, you haven't lived long enough and lack experience. For example, once you establish an advantage, don't give the enemy a chance to breathe. Apuxi, who had unusually long limbs, suddenly took out 2 hand axes from behind him and threw them at Abel with a unique throwing technique. The trajectory of the spinning flying axes was very strange. It forced Abel to twist his body to dodge, and he also needed to block it head-on. Swoosh! A cut mark that was neither deep nor shallow appeared on the back of his right hand. Just as Abel was focused on dodging the hand axes, the death row prisoner, Turgenev, who was standing in the corridor and holding a claw knife with both hands, moved. The 2 death row prisoners closed in and formed a pincer attack, targeting Abel's fatal point. What a strong killing intent! It did feel a little different. When Abel sparred with the night teacher, he didn't feel such killing intent, and he didn't face fatal attacks. But for beasts, the situation was the same. In other words, who was the prey and who was the hunter? White fur floated on the surface of Abel's body. Wolf shadow coupled with beast perception, he dodged at high speed. On top of the original foundation, it actually produced some interference illusions. With incredible movements, he dodged the pincer attack from the 2 death row prisoners. At the same time, he counterattacked fiercely. Swoosh! Blood splattered on the spot. The claw knife fell to the ground. The meridians in the wrist of the death row prisoner, Turgenev, were completely cut off by Abel, and he lost the ability to hold a weapon. He could only temporarily retreat to stop the bleeding. One death row prisoner's attack was gone. Abel, who was greatly relieved, jumped up and grabbed the collar of the prisoner, a puxy, with one hand. Force palm, the shadow of a giant bear appeared behind him. 3 consecutive palm strikes landed on the death row prisoner's head. Several cracks appeared on his skull. His eyeballs were bloodshot. He had a severe concussion. After falling to the ground, a puxy tried to support his body several times, but he slipped again. This was the close combat strength of 100 Beast Abel, who was known as the strongest among this batch of trainee knights. Chapter 290. The bandage stopped the bleeding. The prisoner who used the claw blade used his mouth to forcefully wrap the claw blade around his palm and was about to continue attacking. A chill came. Babble. He was so focused that he completely forgot about the existence of a person. The tentacles connected to the back of his head, and he instantly lost control of his body. Then, a wet tongue slid up his cheek and went into his mouth. Absorbing essence, Han Dong could faintly feel that with the absorption of essence, the woman's head and the red umbrella were growing. The ghost story itself was strengthening. After a while, another vegetative person was born. Hurry! There's another one in front. Good chance. Let me eat. Let me eat more. I promised to let you go. I won't lie. Okay. Abel. Let me do it. Han Dong signaled for Abel to step back temporarily and let him deal with the prisoner with severe concussion. Watching the whole process, Abel frowned a little. He felt a little uncomfortable, but he believed in Han Dong's way of doing things. There was nothing wrong with that. Gurgle gurgle. As the essence was consumed, even the red umbrella was slightly wriggling. The female head was satisfied. The battle was not over yet. Han Dong turned his head and asked, Abel, there's another prisoner on death row, right? Yes, I'll have Wenli and Mia stall him. I'll come down to help you. Let's go up and take a look. With their practice, it should be enough to deal with the enemy. The meal was finished. Han Dong and Abel immediately rushed upstairs. When they approached the 5th floor where the shop was located, a large amount of cut spider silk was scattered in the corridor. What's going on? The situation was different from what they expected. Mia was grinding herbs in the corridor and gently applying them on Wenli's body. During the training, Wenli, who could take the attack of the senior's giant axe with her bare hands, was injured. There were 3 blade wounds on her body. Han Dong was very clear about Wenli's level. If she really went crazy, even Abel might not be able to stop her. Not to mention, Mia's fighting power was not a joke. However, not only did the 2 of them fail to stop the other party, they were also injured instead. What happened? Mia hurriedly explained, this 5-star difficulty is a little too much. The blind man's swordsmanship was exquisite. Every slash was able to find a weak point and fatal point. My spider's silk couldn't block it. Plus, the corridor was too narrow, so my movements were limited. I couldn't find a way to deal with him. Wenli took the risk of injuring herself and broke that person's arm with a single punch. At the same time, that person was also poisoned by my spider's venom. At the rate he fled, the venom would have spread all over his body in a short period of time. He shouldn't be able to live for long. He stared at the large number of sharp knife marks left in the corridor and Wenli's expression as she gritted her teeth to endure the pain. Han Dong nodded. Indeed. These death row inmates all have inhuman powers and are good at dealing with people. If we allow them to deal with ghost stories to gain points and exchange them for extremely powerful items, we might be in danger. In the future, during the operation, we must do a thorough investigation beforehand. Take a look at the store first, I'll deal with this matter. Han Dong pointed at the red umbrella on his back and went to the top floor alone. Congratulations, young man. Based on the promise between us, I won't kill you. On the rooftop, the geisha's head automatically separated from Han Dong's shoulder. When the umbrella opened, a dark cloud immediately formed in the sky above this old building. It was raining here and there. The geisha in the kimono held the red umbrella and stared at Han Dong, making a very polite gesture of welcome. Welcome to paradise. You're much more interesting than the outsiders who have entered this place before. Perhaps we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. You know the setting of paradise? Of course, but I don't mind. As long as there's someone to hold the umbrella for me on rainy days, I'll be satisfied. It doesn't matter where it is. Han Dong took the opportunity to ask. Even though I wasn't able to capture a third person for you, I wonder if you can tell me more about paradise. For example, is there a certain organization or some ghost stories that I need to pay attention to? When Han Dong tried to ask, the geisha turned her head away. Information. If I speak nonsense, I'll be killed by master. There are many secrets in paradise that you can't imagine. Live well. I hope you'll die in master's hands, ha ha ha. In the blink of an eye, the geisha hummed an old local tune. She stepped on the wooden clogs and danced lightly as she slowly retreated. She fell from the edge of the roof and disappeared. At the same time, Han Dong received the system announcement. Grade B Ghost Stories. Red Umbrella completed. Completion method. Completed requirement. Help Rain Girl Red consume the essence of 3 high-level individuals. Reward. 18 Ghost Stories points, 15 base plus 3 quick completion. Han Dong thought back to the words of the geisha. Master, looks like humans have gathered all the ghost stories in one area and have formed a related organization? The strength of the prisoners and the creepiness of the ghost stories do match the 5-star difficulty rating. I'm afraid there's a huge danger that I can't predict currently hidden in this paradise. To be able to understand the strength of the prisoners, confirm the location of the shop, and obtain a certain amount of ghost stories points, this is a good start. Let's go take a look at the shop. Seeing the red umbrella disappear, Abel asked, The ghost story is complete? Obtained 18 ghost stories points. Abel immediately gave him a thumbs up. The starting point was only 5 points. With an extra 18 points, the progress would be much faster. Han Dong walked down the stairs with a smile. His small fist lightly tapped on Abel's arm. I have to thank you, Abel. If not for you, I would have been in danger. Ha ha. When Abel smiled, the white fur on his body fluttered. So, this is the shop? Dong dong dong. He knocked on the door. The old wooden door slowly opened a gap. A decayed arm reached out from the gap. The fingernails were filled with dirt. It felt like it had just crawled out from a grave. It waved its frozen finger and signaled for Han Dong's group to enter. I thought the shop was a supply station set up by humans in paradise. It would be very high-tech, but I didn't expect it to be like this. When the door was pushed open, a familiar smell hit them. It was similar to the smell of a graveyard. Inside the old and cracked room, there were many cupboards, there were many kinds of products stored there. The shop owner was an old man in tattered clothes with white bones peeking out from his limbs. He was sitting before the counter. He lightly rang the bell to signal for Han Dong's group, who were here for the first time, to come over. The shop owner seemed to have something to say. Chapter 291. Spatial technology? Han Dong's attention to detail allowed him to discover the problem with the size of the store. The shop's design and actual size did not match the old building. The interior space was much larger. The current technology level has already reached this level? Or is it only limited to shops? Ring ring ring. The shop owner rang the bell. Han Dong's group came to the counter first. Aha, aha, aha. Due to the large hole in the shop owner's chin, he could only make the word aha when he spoke. Here, they would call the shop owner Mr. Aha. The strange thing was, Han Dong's group could understand the meaning of aha in different tones. This might be related to the destiny space. The translation was as follows. Aha, dear guest. As long as you have enough points, you can buy anything with a price tag in my shop. Since this is your first time in the theme park, let me briefly introduce the shop. First, all the shops in the theme park are owned by me, Mr. Aha. You can find my shops in different districts. All the prices are the same because I'm the only boss. Han Dong made a thoughtful expression. Mr. Aha pulled out a thick book covered in dust from somewhere. He flipped to the table of contents and explained the basic categories. The items I sell here are roughly divided into 5 categories. 1. Clues. It can directly provide you with the basic information of the ghost story, the place of appearance, and how to trigger it. After completing the requirements of the corresponding ghost story, you can get 5% to 30% of the point. Of course, depending on how you deal with it, you can get additional information. 2. Spiritual items. Most physical attacks cannot harm the ghost story itself. To allow you to live longer, these spirit tools can allow you to directly harm the ghost stories, or even kill them completely. The higher the level of the spiritual item, the higher the price. If you think you can deal with the ghost story, there is no need to buy it. 3. Living creatures. When I am free, I will go out to pick up trash. Sometimes I will find weak ghost stories in the trash. I, Mr. Aha, am very kind, so I can only pick them up and keep them in containers. Once you spend money to buy them, they will become your slaves at your disposal. Don't try to get them to deal with other ghost stories. They were picked up from the trash can because they were no match for other ghost stories. 4. Pass. The theme park is not as simple as you think. There are strict divisions inside. If you don't have a pass, you outsiders can only move about in your current area. If one wanted to go to other areas, a pass was a must. 5. Miscellaneous. There's no need to introduce them in detail. All the miscellaneous items are stored in the utility room. Some may be useful to you, but some may even bring you unexpected danger. If you come across some weird ghost stories and need you to collect something, you can come to the storage room to look for it. Perhaps you'll find something. Mr. Aha gave a more detailed explanation. Excuse me, sir, do you have the layout of the park? Yes. However, I suggest that you accumulate enough points before exchanging them together. The blueprint costs 10 points, and each pass costs 10 points. Prepare 50 points before you think about going to other areas. Alright. Han Dong, who currently had 18 ghost stories points, had to figure out how to use them to deal with these spirits that were hard to capture with the naked eye. Han Dong's tentacle power could deal direct damage, and so could Mia's curse power. However, Abel and Wenli, who were more physical attacks, would need to equip themselves with the spirit tools sold in the shop. Unexpectedly, Wenli immediately waved her hands and refused. I don't need it. The blacksmith hammer given to me by my master can break anything. Points are very precious, so I'll use them to exchange for equipment for Captain Abel. At the same time, Abel also said that there was no need. My fate equipment and beast spirits can also harm spirit bodies. Nicholas, use all of your points to exchange for clues. We need to accumulate enough ghost story points so that we can end this fate event as soon as possible. I have a feeling that the longer we stay in this theme park, the more dangerous it will be for us. Han Dong had his own idea. Since the shop sells items to deal with ghost stories, there must be a reason for it. We'd better equip ourselves with one. At this moment, Mia's voice came from the side. I want this. Mia was standing in front of a shelf, holding a tachi with a ghost face carved on its scabbard. It was surrounded by a unique curse aura. You know how to use this weapon? Don't look down on me. I just haven't been able to get my hands on a destiny weapon. Boss, can you give it a try? Shing, the blade was unsheathed. The surface of the blade was covered with a faint black aura. In an instant, Mia's curse power connected with the blade, chop, pull back into the scabbard. The action was done in one go. Mia made a funny face. How is it I didn't lie to you? If there was a decent Destiny equipment in the previous spar, I wouldn't have lost to you so easily. Han Dong was also surprised. He didn't expect Mia to have such an ability. Boss, this thing should be very expensive, right? Aha, now that's interesting. The item that you want, it's a spirit tool, but it's also a clue. If you can complete its corresponding ghost story, you only need to pay me an extra 10 points and it will belong to you. If you accidentally lose this spirit tool when dealing with the ghost story, you have to pay me 100 points. I want this. When Han Dong was thinking, Mia kept pulling Han Dong's arm. However, in terms of value, this cursed blade had to be related to a difficult ghost story. Not to mention the danger. Just as the shop owner said. If they encountered the owner of this cursed blade during the mission and it was taken away, Han Dong and the others would face a debt of 100 points. The perfect start would immediately become a hellish start. Also, even if they could solve the ghost story, they still needed to pay 10 points to obtain this item. Whether it was worth it or not, this was the key question Han Dong had to consider. Aha, mister, can you show us the corresponding clue? I can't. If you want to see the clue, you have to pay the corresponding amount of points. The ghost story that this cursed blade corresponds to is not simple, the difficulty level is relatively high. You have to pay me 10 points in advance before you can see the clue. By the way, this cursed blade is indeed very suitable for women. Chapter 292. Mia stared at the strange demon blade and felt that her saliva was about to flow out. Nicholas, I really like this demon blade. Moreover, since it's an item from the Destiny world, there must be a way to bring it out. At most, I'll just have to spend some points. Last time in the Stuart Manor, it took me a lot of effort to control the mother. As long as I can get this demon blade, I will use all my skills to clear this Destiny event. Mia could clearly feel the true strength of this demon blade. Once she could get it, her future knight's path would be much smoother. Han Dong asked in a low voice, "Is this your request? We have just arrived at the paradise. If this matter is not handled properly, we will fall into a situation of eternal damnation. 100 points of debt will make us fall into the abyss." Request. Mia's face was full of grievances. Han Dong continued, "If you don't want to, I'll choose the safer way of increasing points." Okay. I'll use request. Mia's face was bitter. In her mind she had a big family with Nicholas and gave birth to a human-shaped spider baby. Okay. Request has been used. Han Dong had one less restriction. Otherwise, if Mia thought of a request and pestered him to play on the bed every day, Han Dong would have a lot less time to study. Also, just like what Mia said in the matter of obtaining the title deed, she did help Han Dong a lot. The shop owner suddenly said, "You definitely won't lose out on this deal. Let me give you some information privately. In this area, there is only one shop. The most valuable item is this demon blade that is a combination of clue and spirit tool. Its quality is enough for you to deal with some long history ghost stories. Moreover, this demon blade is the only one, it can't be sold in other shops. It's also impossible to give you an advance of 10 points and let you get it. If you give up the current opportunity, when the next team comes here, they will definitely buy this demon blade at all costs." Okay. How do you pay? Stretch out your arm. Mr. Aha wiggled his muddy fingernails. Drops of rainwater, and some red umbrella fabric, were slowly drawn out from Han Dong's skin. The ghost story for Rain Girl Red has already been completed? Not bad. After collecting the money, Mr. Aha came to the knife rack. Inside, there was a small drawer with a piece of paper inside. Please look for a crooked tree that grows in a shallow pool in a dark and damp corner of the business district. Bring the demon blade with you, and you will encounter them. You must be prepared. I've already reminded you that this demonic blade is the most valuable item in this shop. If you want to obtain it, it's naturally not that simple. You might even have to pay a certain price. Han Dong didn't plan to use the remaining 8 points for the time being. He wanted to keep them as a backup, just in case. Say goodbye to Mr. Aha. Mia held the bewitching blade and rubbed it against his face full of excitement. Han Dong put the clue away. As soon as he closed the door of the shop, Han Dong said in a low voice, "We've been tricked, huh? Tricked by the shop owner earlier?" Wonli immediately pretended to be angry, like she was going to break down the door to get revenge. "No. I mean, we've been tricked by the humans in the fate setting." "What do you mean?" Wonli tilted her head slightly, completely confused. "I thought it was weird from the beginning because the style of this shop is completely different from humans who have mastered advanced technology. Moreover, in the item book that Mr. Aha just showed, there was no escape pass that could be exchanged for 100 points as mentioned in the train's announcement. Furthermore, Mr. Aha isn't human. I'm 70% sure that the shop itself is a type of ghost story. It's all controlled by Mr. Aha. The humans in this world have no control over the theme park. They only found out about the shop from the previous batches of death row inmates. They thought that this was a relatively neutral shop that could be used to help the inmates investigate the theme park." "Huh!" Wonli was shocked. She didn't think in that direction at all. Her idea was very simple. As long as they continued to solve the ghost stories and gain enough points, they could exchange for an escape pass from the shop and end this fate event perfectly. If it was a 2-star fate event, Han Dong might have really thought so. But this was a 5-star fate event. Han Dong already had his suspicions when he heard the announcement on the train. Wasn't it a bit too easy? Now that he met Mr. Aha, he was even more certain. The most difficult point of this fate event, ghost stories. It was probably how to escape. To gain more ghost story points, they had to go deeper into the theme park. But the deeper they went, the harder it was to escape. If they couldn't solve this problem, Han Dong and the rest would be trapped here forever. Han Dong continued with his speculation. Humans have no way to control the theme park. In fact, to stabilize the theme park and ensure that the world wouldn't be affected, they even took the initiative to import androids into the theme park to build a complete city that the ghost stories were satisfied with. Then, through the death row policy, they selected the best death row inmates from all over the world and had them form a suicide squad to gather information about the theme park. The humans outside then used this information to try to stabilize this ghost stories theme park. If they don't control it well, this world might become like our world. Humans can only live in a small area. And those that wander outside the city are all kinds of ghost stories. You have a point. Abel nodded and agreed with Han Dong's speculation. Han Dong took a deep breath. In any case, we have to deal with the sword genius first. After increasing our combat power, we can slowly find the balance of the conflict. To be able to make a technologically advanced human society so fearful that they would spend everything to maintain the balance. The danger of the theme park itself is beyond our imagination. Therefore, even if it's a 5-star fate event, our ultimate goal is to escape and not to reveal the secrets of the theme park or for us to kill an ultimate boss. We have to try our best to get as many points as possible without venturing too deep, and then leave this place. They returned to the main street. Knowing that the prisoners were all very powerful, the team no longer split up. They used various channels to gather information about the crooked tree. Most of the information had to be filtered out, but there was one piece of information that Han Dong felt was very important. It was rumored that in the forest behind an open-air hot spring hotel, there would occasionally be a crooked tree. Some people even heard women crying while they were bathing. Chapter 293. In a country like Dongying, one of the favorite things to do was to soak in hot springs. There were countless hot spring hotels. At first, Han Dong thought that he was going to a secluded hot spring hotel that no one went to. After all, there were rumors of ghosts there. Who knew? When the taxi arrived at the hostile hot spring that was built against the mountain, the taxi stopped. There were cars parked outside the hot spring hotel. Several waiters in kimonos were greeting guests at the door. They seemed to be too busy. "Sir, did you make a reservation in advance?" "No, if you didn't make a reservation in advance, all the rooms are full tonight." "I'm sorry." "Oh. Then can we wait here? If someone checks out at the last minute, let us move in." The waiters replied awkwardly. "Sir, under normal circumstances, there won't be any sudden checkout. Walk down this mountain road, or drive to Kurikawa 7 kilometers away. There should be a good hot spring hotel." "It's okay, let me wait. Maybe someone will check out later." At the same time, inside the hotel, a college couple walked in the bustling passageway, completely forgetting the horrible rumors about this hotel. However, just as they opened the door, a cold wind immediately brushed past their faces. "Strange, why didn't you close the window?" The cute girl took off her shoes and immediately ran to close the window. Creak! The closed window couldn't be locked. It seemed that something was stuck in the keyhole. "Hirono, come and see what's wrong with the window." "Let me see." The man turned on the light mode of his phone and looked at the keyhole. He was so scared that his face turned pale. Hair! Under the light, a large amount of hair was stuffed into the keyhole. It was even squirming slightly. This, just as the young couple was about to call the waiters to deal with it. The girl tilted her head and looked at the wardrobe mirror. The mirror happened to be facing the blind spot between the wardrobe and the wall in the room. A woman in red was standing close to the wardrobe, staring at the two through the mirror. A pair of red lips peeked through the gaps in her black hair. "Hirono, there's a ghost." In less than 10 minutes, a pale-faced college couple hurriedly checked out. He left the inn as fast as he could at a trot. The young couple just happened to pass by Han Dong, who was waiting at the door. Beside the window of the room they were staying in, a woman in red was waving her hand slightly. She wasn't trying to scare the couple, but was trying to signal to Han Dong that her request had been fulfilled. "Sir, please come with me." "Wow. This kind of room feels so good." Wen Li, who had grown up in the Holy City, felt a sense of novelty when she stayed in this Japanese-style room and temporarily forgot the danger of this operation. Similarly, Spider Mia's cheeks slowly turned rosy as she stared at the cozy room. Unknowingly, she had already imagined the scene of her and Han Dong together in this place. However, Mia still knew what was more important. Just as he placed the demon blade that was wrapped in cloth on the ground and prepared to set up a spider web barrier in the corner of the room, Buzz, the demonic blade that came into contact with the floor of the inn, trembled slightly, as if it had activated something. All of a sudden, the four of them were on full alert. His eyes were locked on every corner of the room in case of an enemy attack. 10 minutes passed, and there was nothing unusual. Mia released the little tarantula that shared her vision and crawled out of the window to investigate. She found that everything in the inn was normal. Is it normal? However, since the demon blade is reacting, it means that we've found the right place. What should we do next? Soak in the hot spring. In the open-air hot spring. The four of them leaned against each other and inevitably attracted the attention of others. Apart from Han Dong, who didn't have any special features, the other three attracted a lot of attention. Although Abel wasn't as handsome as Cass, his white hair that resembled wolf fur made him look very cute. Moreover, when Abel was soaking in this pure natural hot spring, his acupuncture points were stimulated, and many white hairs grew from his pores. Although they couldn't see clearly in the water, Han Dong, who was close to Abel, could clearly feel the silky smooth texture of the hairs. As for the two girls who were wearing swimsuits, it was needless to say. It was rare to see such beautiful foreign girls, and some members of a certain organization who were soaking in the hot spring even had evil intentions. Seeing that the two girls' boyfriends weren't very strong, they immediately went forward to talk to them and even directly stretched out their perverted hands. Next, there was no need for Han Dong and Abel to make a move. Wenli grabbed the man's perverted hand and threw it with a little force. A naked but flew directly into the gloomy forest, disappearing without a trace. Immediately afterward, Wenli, who was completely immersed in the bath, slowly floated her upper body out of the water. In fact, she was very shy. After all, it was the first time she wore such a tight swimsuit. Staring at Wenli's well-tempered muscles that didn't lose their beauty, all the outsiders who had bad intentions dispelled their evil intentions. Wow, it's so comfortable. Wenli sank half of her head into the hot spring and blew bubbles for fun. Then, he thought of something and asked, "What's the matter? Deputy Captain, what do you mean by the android you mentioned at the entrance of the store?" "Wenli, your perception isn't strong enough. Mia and Abel should have noticed it. The humans we saw in the paradise, although they behaved exactly like normal people, went to work normally, had their own families, had emotional changes, and encountered ghost stories and were killed, they were not real humans." Listening to Han Dong's conspiracy theory, and staring at the people chatting and laughing in the hot spring, Wenli was so scared that her face turned pale. "Deputy Captain, you're scaring me again." The timid Wenli hugged Mia. "I'm not scaring you. This group of people always feel like something is missing. It's like..." Han Dong swallowed back some words that Wenli couldn't understand, such as gene cultivation and 3D printing. Suddenly, he remembered the human body refinement that he saw when he fought with Demp. It's like the humans created through human body refinement. They lack some things that are necessary for real humans, but their existence stabilizes the paradise. Human body refinement. I heard Master mention it before. It seems to be a kind of alchemy that is listed as forbidden by the Holy City. Han Dong was slightly taken aback as well. He didn't expect that Demps not only had connections with the outside of the city, but the technique he learned was also forbidden. "Mia, is there any reaction from the demon sword?" Under Han Dong's orders, Mia carried the demon sword with her through spider silk. "No. Do we need to go to the forest area to take a look? But we didn't hear the rumored cry of a woman." "No. Let's continue to bathe." Han Dong observed everything silently in the dark. He felt that something was wrong. Chapter 294. When they were soaking in the hot spring, they didn't notice anything strange. They didn't hear the rumor of a woman crying in the forest, only the wailing of the organization member who was thrown into the forest by Wenli. As for the crooked tree mentioned in the clue, when Mia was soaking in the hot spring, she released 6 tarantulas to search for it in the forest. They found several crooked trees, but they didn't fit the description of growing in shallow ponds. They had no clue at all. They even suspected that they had found the wrong place. But, at first, when Mia gently put down the demon sword in the hostel, she did feel something. So what was the problem? 12 o'clock midnight. The team had returned to their room to rest. The men and women were separated by a paper sliding door. The 2 girls slept on the soft tatami in the bedroom. Han Dong and Abel, on the other hand, were resting in the hall. Mia couldn't sleep because of too many things in her mind. Most of her attention was on the demon sword. After all, she had used up her request. No matter what, she had to solve this ghost story and take the demon sword for herself. However, a small part of Mia's attention was still on Han Dong. Through the paper sliding door, she couldn't help but imagine that Han Dong was holding the white hair and doing some physical exercise with Abel. "How can you face the blonde young man like this?" Mia moved with the help of her spider legs and slowly slid the paper door open in complete silence. However, everything in the living room was normal. Han Dong and Abel were sleeping in different places. She didn't know how long the fate event would last, so she had to seize any free time to sleep. Just when Mia felt a little better and was about to sleep, because she was too focused on whether the two boys were doing anything, she accidentally heard some strange sounds coming from the corridor outside the room. It sounded like someone was cutting something. The hot spring hostel was open 24 hours a day. Some tourists also liked to go to the hot spring when there were fewer people. At midnight in the hot spring area, 3 business partners were enjoying their leisure time in the hot spring after a business trip, amidst the thick white fog. At some point in time, a female worker in a kimono was standing behind them. Needless to say, the waitresses in this hot spring hotel were quite good-looking. With light makeup, their beautiful faces were like blooming flowers in their early 20s. Moreover, in the loose kimono there were a few seductive gaps. The only difference was that he was different from the usual waiters. Around the slender neck of the waitress in front of him, there was a deep mark of a hemp rope. Seeing this beautiful scenery, the businessman was naturally very interested. He tried to ask the waiter if he could provide any paid services. Creak, creak, the beautiful waitress suddenly raised her head and made a strange sound. There seemed to be something being spat out from his mouth. It was a sharp katana with a devil's face engraved on its hilt. The waiter slowly spat it out from his mouth. The 3 businessmen thought that this was some kind of acrobatic performance and did not feel the horror in it. When the waiter's delicate arm grabbed the handle of the knife, an unnatural smile appeared on his face. His head suddenly drooped down, and his bloodshot eyes stared at the 3 businessmen in the hot spring. Swish, the hot spring pool was gradually dyed with a dark pigment. The 3 businessmen did not have time to show a frightened expression. Only a head with a strange expression was left floating on the hot spring like a boat. If one looked down at the current hot spring area, beside each of the hot springs, there was a waitress with a katana in her hand. At the same time, inside the hotel, the young and beautiful waitress was knocking on the door one by one. "What are you doing in the middle of the night?" Many of the guests who were woken up were extremely angry and were about to scold the waitress. The next second, the angry expressions they left on their faces were forever frozen. A guest who lived in the deeper part of the hotel and left the dormitory to make a phone call in the corridor due to privacy issues happened to witness the terrifying scene of the night purge in the corridor. Although this person was pale with fright, his legs were still strong. He immediately took his live-in friend and escaped from the hotel through the window and went straight to the parking area. However, just as the guest started the engine, he saw a waitress sitting in the back area with a smile in the rearview mirror. The next second, the sharp blade had pierced through the leather chair and his body. Soon, there was also a waitress who came to the door of the room where Han Dong and others lived. In the case of knocking on the door without any response, she directly cut the wooden door open. The spider enchantment was triggered. Countless poisonous spiders poured out of the room and instantly drowned the waitress. The poisonous teeth madly bit the waitress's smooth skin. But the next second a strange phenomenon happened. The waitress who was bitten by a large number of poisonous spiders was not affected at all. Instead, a cold air overflowed from her skin. The poisonous spiders that touched it were immediately frozen to death and slid down from the surface of her body. The waitress stepped on the cold air that seemed to come from the bottom of the pool and stepped into the room full of spiders. She did not find any living people, only the open window and the footprints left in the soil outside the window. For a moment, immediately, 3 waitresses who were patrolling outside, carrying katanas, followed the footprints. Hot Spring Hotel, the rooftop. Han Dong's team of 4 was lurking on the roof with a method of hiding their breath. Little Magic Eye was fully opened. Han Dong, who was covered in the crow costume, was scanning the entire hotel. There are a total of 27 waitresses like this. There are also some areas covered in thick fog that I can't see clearly. Han Dong's expression was not very good. It's very strange. When I entered the hotel, I carefully observed these waitresses. I did not notice anything strange at all. They were just normal people at the beginning. Why would there be such a big change? Mia said at this time. The spider seal that I set in the room has been broken. Not a single waitress was killed. The spider's venom is completely ineffective, and the curse effect is greatly suppressed. These waitresses can release a strange cold air from their bodies. Even spiders made of pure curse will be frozen to death. As expected of the incident that Mr. Aha warned us about, it should be the most difficult ghost story to solve in the current area. Mia, you have to keep the demon blade well. If any breath leaks out, we will be locked down. I know. The demon blade was wrapped in the origin spider silk, and the breath was completely locked inside. Mia asked tentatively, what do we do next? Do we need to clean up these waitresses? How do we do that? Their power is very strange, and their swordsmanship is very sharp. If we are surrounded, we will be in danger. Even if we can really clean them up, it will exhaust a lot of stamina points. After all, the ghost story has not been officially triggered. They have not even found the crooked tree that was mentioned in the clues. Perhaps the ghost story itself has the ability to create an unlimited number of these waitresses. Our main goal is to find the crooked tree and officially trigger the ghost story. Before that, we need to conserve as much stamina points as possible. What we have seen so far is just the surface of the ghost story. The beautiful waitress in kimono was holding a tachi and patrolling the hotel with a smile on her face. Occasionally, she would breathe out cold air. Occasionally, a long tongue that reached her belly button would protrude. Occasionally, her body would twist strangely. What kind of ghost story awaited Han Dong's team? Chapter 295. In the area observed by my little magic eye, there are 3 areas that are shrouded in thick fog. One is the public hot spring. The second is the hotel lobby and the cashier area. The third is the staff dormitory built on the side of the hotel, which is also the staff area. What do you think? Let my little spiders investigate first. Mia cooperated with the curse and released a type of spider with the ability to become invisible. Its size was also relatively small. When the invisible spiders approached these 3 areas, they were immediately frozen to death by a kind of cold air. The 3 areas have barriers. The little spiders can't sneak in. Ouch. Then I can't do anything. At this moment, not far from the edge of the roof, Owl's protection, Abel Ryan's eyes were covered with a layer of light green luster. He was sitting obediently at the edge of the area, observing the situation inside the hot spring hotel. He had finished analyzing the information and had returned to the team to report the information. In the 3 areas covered by the white fog, the situation is as follows. In the lobby and the cashier area, I can directly feel that there is a very powerful individual inside. It seems to be the hotel's lady boss. Even with the owl's eye, I can only vaguely see a blurry dark blue figure. As for the center of the public hot spring, there is a strong aura similar to the lady boss. There seems to be some unknown danger buried at the bottom of the hot spring. As for the staff dormitory built on the mountain, there is no dangerous aura similar to the previous 2. Han Dong gently tapped Abel's arm with his small fist and praised, "Amazing, among the various eye abilities of the same level. Han Dong's little magic eye was definitely the best, but it was limited to visual observation. In the current situation, vision was blocked, and deeper information could not be obtained. However, Abel was different. Abel had 100 beasts, which could greatly enhance his 5 senses. Perhaps the owl's eye was not as abnormal as the little magic eye, but Abel could still obtain different information through smell, hearing, and some unique beast intuition. After comprehensive analysis, he could obtain conclusions that Han Dong could not obtain with only 1 eye. Nicholas, what do you think? Abel asked. We'll go directly to the staff dormitory. Before we find the real ghost story, there's no need to get involved with these troublemakers. Alright? The group of people slowly descended from the roof, using the most secretive method. They deliberately took a detour and stealthily made their way to the dormitory on the other side of the inn through the forest. He landed on the roof, and just as he entered the forest, Han Dong tilted his head and unexpectedly caught a glimpse of the lady boss that Abel had just mentioned. Dark blue kimono. When he stepped on the ground barefoot, a layer of mist would be released. She wore a jade hairpin on her head and had a solemn hairstyle. His left hand held an exquisite katana that reflected the moonlight, while his right hand held a poisoned cyan dagger. His face was hidden in the thick fog and darkness, and it was impossible to see his face clearly. Overall, he gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. There's a need to avoid it. They went around the dark forest. In the forest near the hot spring hotel, they found many pitiful travelers who had fled here but were still killed. Their bodies hung from the trees, and the fear in their eyes did not disappear even after death. After taking a big detour, they finally arrived at the 2-story dormitory building. All the young and beautiful employees lived here. Han Dong even saw a recruitment poster by the roadside. This hot spring hotel had a long-term recruitment of young women between the ages of 18 to 25. There was no requirement for education or work experience. The only requirement was that they had to be dignified and have a good appearance. However, the hotel itself was quite legal. At least from Han Dong's perspective, they would not provide any illegal services on the surface. Then, what was the purpose of recruiting so many young women? Unlimited manufacturing? Han Dong's group observed the dormitory for a while. He realized that every once in a while, a beautiful employee would walk out from the dormitory door. The circle of strangulation marks around her neck was clearly visible. Initially, the employees at the hotel didn't have these marks. If we can find the source of these marks, we should be able to find the place that corresponds to the ghost story. Next, we need to be more secretive. Mia, stay outside with Wunli. Abel and I will try to sneak into the employees' dormitory. Why not you and me? Mia was not happy. The demonic sword is on you. Even though it's sealed by the spider web, if we get close to the demonic sword's owner, we might be discovered. Once Abel and I find the crooked tree, we'll send you a signal. Okay. Catch. Mia had a tarantula crawl into Han Dong's sleeve. If there's any danger, just tell it. Wunli and I will come to help immediately. Okay. Just as the next employee left the dormitory, 2 black shadows quickly slipped into the dormitory building. In the dim corridor that was only illuminated by the moonlight, all the doors of the dormitory building were open, but the employees were not in the rooms. The bunk structure could accommodate 4 employees in one room. From the dressing table that was full of cosmetics, as well as some dolls and female decorations in the room, it could be seen that the employees were living a normal life. Han Dong and Abel hid in an empty room and observed for a while. Every once in a while, the employees who were wearing kimonos and had strangulation marks on their necks would randomly walk out of an empty room. Why would there be employees in an empty room for no reason? While Han Dong and Abel were rummaging through an empty room in the dormitory, trying to find a hidden compartment, a voice suddenly rang out. Click. The door of the independent bathroom in the dormitory was suddenly closed. Then, the door lock was gently twisted from the inside. When the door was reopened, a waiter with a smile walked out from the inside. Han Dong was completely hidden in the corner by the crow's feathers. Abel activated tortoise protection to stop his heart temporarily and wrapped his body in a blanket. The concealment was successful. In this way, the problem was obviously in the bathroom. If the secret passage was in the bathroom, the employee could just walk out directly. Why would there be an extra opening and closing process for no reason? Thinking of this, Han Dong recalled the interval between opening and closing the door, as well as the speed at which the door was opened. They opened and closed the door again. The originally narrow bathroom had turned into a staircase that led downwards. Bursts of cold air were constantly emitted from below. Is it the design of overlapping spaces again? Is there a switch on the bathroom door? Can it be switched by opening and closing the door? The familiar old woman's voice echoed in his mind. It seemed that she was going to start telling him a bedtime story again. Ghost story, starved ghost. Chapter 296. Ghost Story. Ghost story. According to rumors, during the shogunate period, a general married a beautiful wife who loved knives. Her name was Ghost Story. Because she would spend a lot of time practicing her knife skills every day, the woman's body was in excellent condition. She gave birth to 4 strong sons for the general, and when they grew up, they became brave generals. However, war was merciless. The general was defeated. When the bad news came, the enemy attacked at the same time. Something incredible happened. The woman, who was over half a year old, led the guards in the house, and with the help of the general's houses easy to defend and hard to attack, she killed hundreds of enemy soldiers and held the enemy back. However, facing an army of tens of thousands, all she could do was buy time. During the resistance, suddenly someone outside the house threw in a big sack. When it was opened, it was filled with the heads of the general and his 4 sons. For a moment, the morale of the army was in chaos. The time needed to break into the general's house was greatly shortened. However, when the army entered the house, the woman had already hanged herself on a big locust tree that grew in a shallow pond in the courtyard. The heads of her husband and sons were placed neatly under her. The katana that had killed hundreds of enemy soldiers was stuck in the middle. It looked like some kind of evil formation. Then, something strange happened. The new general who took over the land saw the locust tree that had hanged the original owner as an unclean object. He asked his subordinates to pull it out by the root. However, the workers who came into contact with the locust tree would feel unwell in a short period of time. They would catch a cold and die the next day. Those who were infected would whisper a name before they died, a ghost story. Not long after, the general's house was in chaos again. The new general held the original owner's katana and killed the whole family in one night. The next morning, he hanged himself under the tree. For a time, the ghost story of Ghost Story spread, and no one dared to come close to the general's house. Until the modern era. Due to the rise of hot spring hotels, this place was transformed into a primitive hot spring hotel built against the mountain. The crooked tree was also preserved. However, the guests who soaked in the hot spring here, especially in the evening, would occasionally catch a glimpse of a middle-aged woman holding a katana under a crooked tree, sobbing slightly. Ghost Story Level A+, Trigger Method, Clues and Self-Exploration. Requirements: search for the former general's mansion and find the obsession of going to Shao under the big locust tree. Reward: unique destiny equipment, Demon Blade, Starved Ghost. Head to the shop to spend a certain amount of Ghost Story points to obtain the ownership of the Demon Blade. The old woman finished her story. Mia and Wunli, who were originally waiting outside, took advantage of the time difference between the waiters' refresh and came in one after another. Abel stared at Mia's demon blade that was wrapped in spider silk. If this demon saber falls into the hands of Chi again, I'm afraid it will be extremely dangerous. Why don't we let Mia take the demon saber away from here temporarily and let us handle this matter? Blacksmith Wunli also felt that Abel's suggestion made sense. However, Han Dong did not think so. In the old woman's story, the demonic blade was like a single entity with the Chi. Moreover, in the requirements, he needed to resolve his obsession. The resolve here might have a different meaning. Han Dong thought that if he did not bring the bewitching blade with him, even if he could kill the mistress and burn down the crooked tree, he would not be able to complete the ghost story. The demon saber is the Chi, and the Chi is the demon saber. Before the mistress died, she probably fused part of her soul into the blade and left the rest inside the locust tree. The demon saber that we have now is not complete. To completely resolve the obsession and complete the demon saber, we have to bring the demon saber into the general's mansion. Of course, as you worry, Abel, there is a risk. Once the mistress obtains the demon saber, we will be facing a strong enemy that is difficult to deal with. This is a 5-star mission, and currently, it corresponds to A+ level ghost story. We have to take this risk. Abel punched Han Dong's arm. I'll listen to you. Let's go. They walked down the cold and dark corridor. Not only was the temperature low, but the chill felt like it could seep into their skin. It was very uncomfortable. Slowly, the group moved closer to Wan Li due to Wan Li's special physique. She was able to resist even such cold air. She was even emitting hot air in the opposite direction. In such an environment, Wan Li was simply a natural heater. Han Dong shivered due to his weak body constitution. If it was only him and Wan Li, he might have hugged Wan Li to keep warm. Thud when they stepped down the last step. The general's mansion that was built underground appeared before their eyes. Just like how it was set in this Fate event, all the ghost stories were moved to the theme park. The general's mansion with the legend of the bewitching ghost was also moved to this underground area. No wonder they could not find the crooked tree on the surface. There were many exits in the underground area that were connected to the various dormitories on the surface. Obviously, the mistress was trying to rebuild the general's mansion. Currently, young women in kimonos lined up at the entrance of the general's mansion. Every time an employee with a strangulation mark on their neck came out, a new employee would enter the mansion. What they were doing, combined with the known information, was very obvious. Lining up to hang themselves. The employees who were affected by some kind of mental influence all came to the underground general's mansion. They were originally normal people, but by hanging themselves, they could obtain the essence of the strangulation mark that was inside the crooked tree. It gave them exquisite swordsmanship and a cold power that came from the ghost story. However, they themselves were also subject to certain restrictions. Their power came from here. Once they left the general's mansion, they would immediately turn into harmless corpses. Han Dong whispered, "This is the ghost story that corresponds to the demon blade. Let me arrange the plan. Wan Li, I need you to use the blacksmith hammer to destroy all the exits. Do not let the employees on the surface come down to help." Okay. Mia, you will be the main force of this ghost story mission. You will control the demon blade and fight the mistress. Abel and I will help you from the side. We will not let you be affected by other factors. This is the weapon you asked for, so you have to solve this problem yourself. I know. But if I am in danger, you have to come save me. Don't worry, I will not let anything happen to you. Seeing Han Dong so protective of her, Mia was happy and kissed him on the cheek. Just like that, the plan slowly began. However, even after the plan was laid out, Han Dong's brain was still in a state of high-speed calculation. He felt that there were some other factors that he did not consider. Chapter 297. The most difficult ghost story in the business district. There might be other problems that I haven't considered. When the employees lining up outside the gate of the general's mansion had all left the underground area after hanging themselves, Mia was the leader. Han Dong and Abel accompanied her. The three of them entered the mansion through the front door. Wan Li sneaked to the underground tunnel, preparing to cut off the connection between the underground area and the surface area. Inside the mansion, even though the main mansion was dilapidated and there were large amounts of blood stains in the corridors and sliding doors, the whole mansion was still well preserved. Not far from the main mansion was the shallow pool mentioned in the clues. There was a large tree with a crooked neck growing in the pool, and such a structure was very suitable for hanging. In fact, when the party looked directly at the tree, they even had a brief suicidal thought in their minds. Both Mia and Abel were stunned for a moment. The body hair of the insects and animals grew slightly on the surface of their bodies, and sweat dripped down from their foreheads. However, Han Dong's focus was different. When Han Dong stepped into the mansion, most of his attention was on the main mansion. This was because the little magic I seemed to have seen something in the dark corners of the building. Furthermore, there were occasionally strange bloody handprints on the paper doors. The whole building exuded an indescribable evil aura. At this time, crying came from under the locust tree. Waves of cold air spread out from the shallow pool, even forming a layer of ice around it. A woman in a pale pink kimono with white borders and a Hanya mask appeared under the tree. Her body was both real and intangible, and normal attacks would not be able to hurt her. From her smooth skin, she did not look like a middle-aged woman over 50. At this time, Han Dong made an unusual decision. His palm landed lightly on his partner's shoulder. "Abel, help Mia and fight this female owner. I have to go inside the building to take a look." If this was the first time they worked together, Abel would definitely reject Han Dong's suggestion. After all, the final destination of the ghost story was here, and it was unwise to split up at this time. However, Abel, who had worked together before, trusted his decision completely. Abel's furry ears twitched as if he heard something. "There seems to be a strange sound coming from inside the building. You have to be careful." Han Dong gave an okay sign. "Don't worry. I'm a team." At this time, boom! Loud noises came from all the entrances of the underground area. Wonli only needed a light hammer to completely collapse the small passageway that connected to the dormitory above ground. This noise attracted the attention of the crying woman under the locust tree. When she turned her head, she realized that there was one less person in the general's residence. However, she did not care. The only thing that caught her attention was the demon blade that was wrapped in spider silk on Mia's back. The demon sword that was stolen years ago had finally returned. In the corridor outside of the main building, Han Dong stood in front of the sliding door covered in bloody handprint. Splash! He suddenly slid the door open. In an instant, he caught a glimpse of a naked figure on the opposite side of the ceiling. The figure was crawling away quickly. The presence of the figure was completely different from the workers at the Hot Spring Hotel. As expected, although the main focus of the ghost story is the female owner, the general's residence is also an important factor that cannot be ignored. The Japanese Bushido spirit regards seppuku as the most noble way to die. However, when the enemy attacked the mansion, the female owner did not end her life by seppuku. Instead, she chose to commit suicide by hanging and used the head of her family and her favorite katana as an evil ritual. It is very possible that the female owner has been practicing this kind of evil sorcery for a long time. A locust tree that grows in a shallow pool. Over 50 years old, but with smooth skin and extraordinary swordsmanship. All of these prove this point. I even suspect that the female owner, Yuki, has already taken over the general and become the real owner of the mansion. The real secret of the general's residence should be hidden here. If I can find it, I might be able to completely eradicate the ghost story. Just as Han Dong made a series of speculations in his mind. In the corner of the room, a black shadow slowly formed. "Who is it?" Han Dong was ready to use the ability related to his tentacles. However, in the next second, Han Dong slowly pulled back. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. The black shadows gathered and slowly walked out of the shadows. It wasn't the dead soul in the general's mansion, nor was it the clown Pennywise in the illusion. It was Aha-san? That's right, the person who walked out from the corner was the owner of the shop, Mr. Aha-san. Han Dong, who was originally calculating and analyzing the incident at the general's residence, was suddenly interrupted by Mr. Aha-san's appearance. It was as if a large program had been added to his computer. This made Han Dong's thoughts a bit messy. Aha-san, from the start I could see that you were completely different from the Oi death row prisoners. that were sent here. You actually ignored the main ghost story outside and came to the crucial building alone. This, General's residence, has always been troublesome to deal with. I have to manage many shops at the same time, so I rarely have time to deal with this. The last time I came here, I only managed to steal the demon blade. I once gave the demon blade to many groups of prisoners to deal with, but they were all useless. They all died before they could even get to the bottom of the building. I even needed to retrieve the demon blade. However, this time, my feeling is not bad. You are completely different from those useless prisoners. Since you've discovered the root of the problem, plus there aren't many customers in the shop today, let's deal with the General's residence, together, Aha-san? If you can really deal with it, I can consider giving you a discount on the items in the shop. Things suddenly changed. Mr. Aha-san offered to cooperate. Just as Han Dong was hesitating, a system announcement came. Hidden event, General's residence, triggered. Introduction requirement. When your team went deep into the ghost story, you accidentally discovered the secret of the General's residence. Within the theme park's business area, the General's residence is not completely under your control. You need to help Mr. Aha-san expose the secret of the General's residence so that Mr. Aha-san can fully control this area. Trigger condition. Enter the General's residence alone before the female owner, Chi, dies. Event type. Assistance completion reward. Increase intimacy level with Mr. Aha-san. Hint. By improving your relationship with Mr. Aha-san, you can enjoy the shop's exclusive discount and can even purchase some rare items. Do you want to accept the hidden event? Yes. Han Dong was shocked as well. He did not expect that his exploration alone would trigger an unexpected hidden event, and at the same time, it would bring out the mysterious Mr. Aha-san. This made Han Dong curious about Mr. Aha-san's real position in the theme park. Seeing that the cooperation was successful, Mr. Aha-san pulled out a layer of black shadow from his pocket and stuck it on the wall of the General's residence. In an instant, the black shadow spread out and sealed off the entire building, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. The current hidden event had to be completed by Han Dong alone. Let's go, young man. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.